Raven. That's the big thing for this month, really.
I'm not that into Raven.
Raven's WWE contract came up, and 2 days later he jumped to TNA.
Fuck yeah! I'm so happy about this.
Yeah, if you watch the watch-along, Liam's reaction to Raven is just pure ecstasy.
I threw my hands up in the air and I didn't know what to do with them, so I just kept them up there.
Like, Liam is just in pure glee and elation for just the remainder of that watch-along and just the entire outro. He's just so happy that Raven has showed up, because I was actually quite upset. If you go and listen to the watch-along, there's a period where you notice that a Raven sign in the crowd, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to reveal the surprise that Raven shows up at the end of the show, so I tried to play it coy, and thankfully you didn't catch on.
Yeah, Raven, as a kid, Raven was one of my favorite wrestlers, so I was very excited to see his debut, and he looked like a fucking killer.
Yeah, like, these shows are just desperately in need of stars, because like when BG James is one of like the most well-known big name acts, you so badly need somebody new, and that somebody new is Raven, who's a good wrestler and probably even more importantly a great promo, and has star value and has a name and can do the right kind of match in the TNA environment. He's exactly the kind of wrestler TNA needed at that. Obviously, like, if they could get Kurt Angle here, it would be even better. But for realistically, who TNA could pull, who TNA could afford, and who would be willing to go to TNA, like, Raven is the perfect wrestler for them at this stage.
And just going on to the last show for a second, the Raven-Jarrett feud feels like the biggest thing this company's ever done.
Oh, far enough, and it does over the months develop into like the biggest match in company history by the time they do it. Like, it's a world title match. Like, to be fair to the Killings and Jarrett title match back in 2002, like, that felt like a big title match. It felt like a big deal by the time they actually got to doing it. And like a lot of the other the title matches on these shows are absolutely terrible. It's just Jarrett defending against freaking John Harris, Daniels, and BG James. Nobody wants to see that. So when you do get to the Jarrett and Raven match, it's like, oh, this is like a real challenger taking it to Jarrett, an actual guy who could beat him, instead of a guy who you have no faith whatsoever in beating him.
Also, for like the first time, it really feels like two stars relatively in their primes fighting in the main event.
Yeah, because say like Ron Killings, as we mentioned on the Patreon show where we gave out awards, breakout star of 2002 easily. But I don't think anybody considered him a main event star, even at that stage. Even now, in like early 2003, he slipped firmly back at the mid-card. Like, he eats a loss to, was it Flair or Sanders he lost to on these shows? He lost to one of them.
Sanders.
Yeah, he's lost to Sanders. And fair enough, it's via botch interference from Jerry Lynn, but he's still getting pinned by Mike Sanders. So, like, that tells you how quickly Killings has been downcycled, and how probably unfairly Killings has been downcycled. But you do have Raven, who feels like the second he shows up, like, he shows up at the end of the third show of the month on NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 29, January 22nd. Like, Jarrett's just defended the belt. Raven shows up, drops him with the even flow, steals the belt. Crowd goes nuts. He looks really cool with the jacket and the hair, and he hits his pose. And it does feel like a cool moment.
I already have one criticism of the Raven stuff, though.
Oh, no.
A, he should have kept that look. It's much better than his look that he ends up going with. And B, his first thing that he did on his first real night was get beat up by Jeff Jarrett and saved by Vince Russo.
Yeah, so the next night he comes out, or the next week on the January 29th pay-per-view, he comes out, he does his promo how he wants to win the belt with some of your favourite lines in TNA history. I want to urinate in Jeff Jarrett's bone marrow. Which would take quite a bit of effort to get all the way through to the bone marrow to piss in it.
It's also really funny that, like, well, I assume he would murder him first, and then chop him into pieces and piss in his bone marrow.
You have thought about this.
I mean, I broke down the psychology of the line, what can I say? And then, more interestingly, it's like, he starts this off and he's over as hell, and the whole, like, asylum is chanting Raven, and then he just immediately goes into the "you people" promo. But he gets them to turn on him, which I guess is the point, but it just feels like a waste of a star to not use that initial hype and to turn him straight away.
And if you think about it, like, Jarrett was a heel, but the sex stuff turned Jarrett babyface. Whereas, like, if Jarrett was a heel and you had babyface Raven coming in, I think that dynamic is so much better.
But I also think you could have played, like, I know you're doing it with AJ right now, but I think you could have done a more blatant playing both sides character with Raven. And I think that would have been better because it would have kept him as, like, a tweener leaning babyface, which I think there's a lot more money in than straight up just heel Raven coming in. Especially as, you know, when you're so desperate for stars, when the only one you really have is Jarrett.
Yeah, and I think it does go back to the thing you mentioned where it's like they're already doing like 3 different people like flirting with joining sex or maybe not joining sex. So when you introduce Raven to be the next person to do that, it's like, all right, like you did it with Jorge, you did it with AJ, and you even did it with Percy Pringle. So
yeah, but my argument would be I think it would be better to use it as Raven is using sex as opposed to sex is using Raven. Like he's using these guys to get his rocks off. The joke was right there. No, he's using these guys to get the title, but he's not really with them.
yeah, we never talked about my bad Raven promo.
Oh yeah, talk about your bad Raven promo.
So on this show, Raven comes out and he's cutting the promo on AJ, and it's the most like flowery, poetic nonsense, fake Bray Wyatt language you've ever heard in your life.
Well, to be fair, that was it. That is Raven. Like, I don't want to give Bray Wyatt credit for that. Like, that Raven invented that shit.
So much so that I wrote down, I transcribed his promo.
Oh, are you going to perform it right now?
I'm going to perform Raven's promo.
Do it as Raven. Please try and get the voice.
You do realize that you are a mere gardener in the yard of life, while I walk a different road, a road of horror, a narrow road with no turns, that only the bravest men would dare travel. Pain is a bridge on that road, carrying the traveler over dark waters of deceit and scorn. Debt incurred on this road is a lifelong bond. A hunger to be satiated. It is a debt of blood, and it requires sacrifice. It sounds more like James Mitchell. It requires sacrifice. Your sacrifice, AJ Styles. I was like, dude, just take it down a notch, okay? You're not Edgar Allan Poe, no matter how hard you try.
He also just sounds bored the whole time too while he does it. So he'll be like, this road, they go down the road, and then I'm the gardener on the road, and I am the Raven, and I am the darkness, and I am that death, I am the Reaper standing at the end of the road, in my clockwork orange house of fun, cohort the Raven, nevermore.
He clearly got lost down that road while he was trying to cut this promo.
He's like, I'm going down the road, and... Oh, fuck, what was after the road? I'm at the road!
Road dog? Is that where I'm going here?
Road dog! You're saying all these slurs!
There is 2 Ravens. There is the Raven that has something, like, substantial to sink his teeth into. And then he's, like, one of the best promos in wrestling. And there's the Raven that doesn't really have much going on, so he's just sent out there to say something, and he decides to fill that time with utter gibberish.
Well, you see it in this month. When he has nothing, he does that. And when he's feuding with an old rival, the Sandman, he has so much stuff to draw on that he delivers a really great promo. Maybe we just don't get it. Get the genius.
We don't, it's just too highbrow. It's too galaxy brain for us to comprehend.
Like Bray Wyatt. Maybe that's why we don't like Bray Wyatt.
What Raven and Sandman had their blow-off, the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, which actually featured the debut of Kevin Sullivan.
Which I was into.
So the first show of the month, March 5th, starts with Raven cutting a promo. And once again, Liam, I've written down the Raven promo.
Here we go!
Life is a tapestry, weaved by the gods. And those who are singled out for this divine birthright, again, my Raven impression sounds much more like James Mitchell, have 2 choices.
You need more pauses in here. You're remembering it too well.
Oh, sorry, yes. They can fight it, or they can face it. Well, I have turned the other cheek for far too long. Lights flicker out. Oh, sorry, the light, that's stage direction.
Sorry, whoosh, lights.
Because midway through this, while he's cutting the promo, which is an important note in a second we'll come back to, the lights kind of drop, and you can see, like, the confusion on his face. He's like, what?
He's like, Sabu?
I have not been devout because pain and horror are holy things, and by believing in the darkness, we are elevated, and by elevating us, we elevate ourselves when we destroy, and when we destroy, we are cleansed. Welcome to Raven's Clockwork Orange House of Fun. Quote the Raven, nevermore. He does another one on the second show of the month, which is just as bad, but I didn't write down.
Next time. We can only have one Raven promo read a month.
Yeah, because the first show of the month, Raven has what ends up actually being a pretty good promo.
It ends up arguably being his best promo.
Yeah, but it starts as legitimately one of the worst promos I've ever seen on a wrestling show. So he's sitting there in his perch with Goldilocks, and he's doing his regular stuff, and he's about to go into one of his long-winded, stupid, like, tangents about something nonsense.
And then some guy in the crowd's like, fuck you, Raven.
No, it's even better. He forgets it. he completely forgets what he was going to talk about. He's like, Goldie, I have so many ideas. You can't even understand. It's like, they just all go through my head, and I don't understand what's happening.
Please do it in the voice.
Goldie, you just don't understand what's going through my brain. Because I forgot my lines, and I'm trying to pause for time here, Goldie. Yeah, and then I guess someone in the crowd shouts something.
Hey, fuck you,
Yeah,
Raven.
they're like, you suck, Raven. It's like, how dare you interrupt me? I'm trying to say something very important here, and you're interrupting me.
And then he gets, like, sad. He's like, come on, man. I'm trying to do my promo here.
Yeah, and then he starts talking about Nashville, and it's like, you people in Nashville, you're lowly people. He can't even come up with an insult for the people of Nashville.
And then he gets frustrated, and he stands up, and he snatches the mic, and...
He just cuts a promo. He's like, Jarrett, this is my destiny. I'm going to win the title. I'm a cool guy. And it's like, yes, just do that all the time, Raven. You do not need your freaking fake poetry gibberish. You do not need your fake Bray Wyatt nonsense. You just cut a promo. You're a good promo. Stop doing your bullshit.
Yeah, because he just started talking his shit, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, the promo's on our Twitter. If you want to go to TNA History Pod, scroll down a little, you'll find it. It's like it thoroughly sums up Raven's first 3 months in TNA in that you get the flowery nonsense that says nothing, and he completely loses track of it. He doesn't care, and then he gets flustered and just cuts a promo as Raven, and it rules. It's just like, yes, that is what we have been asking for this entire time, Raven. We just want you to be yourself. So we'll pivot now to the Raven and Jarrett stuff for the month, which is the biggest point of the month, of course. It's the biggest match in TNA history to this point. Raven challenging Jeff Jarrett for the NWA title. They do spend the entire month building to the match, which is very un-TNA-like in this era.
How, like, badly do you think Russo wanted to hotshot this?
He probably just wanted to, like, because I think they planned to do it earlier, but then Raven took that last show of March off because he couldn't stop bleeding. So they did deload, but they did pretty early in the month announce that they're doing Jarrett and Raven on the 30th. I think they announced it on the second show of the month, on the April 9th show. So, like, maybe if he had full control at that stage, I don't think he had full control until later in the month. He probably would have done it earlier, but I think they did announce it, and they did commit to when they did it, and they built to it. I don't think... What did you think of the build at Jarrett and Raven?
I didn't love it, but also it was at least somewhat coherent in that it followed a story structure. I think this was an important month for Raven's character because we got the formation of the Gathering, and we got the transition of, let's pre-tape his stuff so it doesn't go so rambly.
Yeah, because the first show of the month, Raven has what ends up actually being a pretty good promo.
It ends up arguably being his best promo.
Yeah, but it starts as legitimately one of the worst promos I've ever seen on a wrestling show. So he's sitting there in his perch with Goldilocks, and he's doing his regular stuff, and he's about to go into one of his long-winded, stupid, like, tangents about something nonsense.
And then some guy in the crowd's like, fuck you, Raven.
No, it's even better. He forgets it. he completely forgets what he was going to talk about. He's like, Goldie, I have so many ideas. You can't even understand. It's like, they just all go through my head, and I don't understand what's happening.
Please do it in the voice.
Goldie, you just don't understand what's going through my brain. Because I forgot my lines, and I'm trying to pause for time here, Goldie. Yeah, and then I guess someone in the crowd shouts something.
Hey, fuck you,
Yeah,
Raven.
they're like, you suck, Raven. It's like, how dare you interrupt me? I'm trying to say something very important here, and you're interrupting me.
And then he gets, like, sad. He's like, come on, man. I'm trying to do my promo here.
Yeah, and then he starts talking about Nashville, and it's like, you people in Nashville, you're lowly people. He can't even come up with an insult for the people of Nashville.
And then he gets frustrated, and he stands up, and he snatches the mic, and...
He just cuts a promo. He's like, Jarrett, this is my destiny. I'm going to win the title. I'm a cool guy. And it's like, yes, just do that all the time, Raven. You do not need your freaking fake poetry gibberish. You do not need your fake Bray Wyatt nonsense. You just cut a promo. You're a good promo. Stop doing your bullshit.
Yeah, because he just started talking his shit, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, the promo's on our Twitter. If you want to go to TNA History Pod, scroll down a little, you'll find it. It's like it thoroughly sums up Raven's first 3 months in TNA in that you get the flowery nonsense that says nothing, and he completely loses track of it. He doesn't care, and then he gets flustered and just cuts a promo as Raven, and it rules. It's just like, yes, that is what we have been asking for this entire time, Raven. We just want you to be yourself.
Yeah, and then we get the Gathering stuff.
Yeah, so Raven forms the Gathering, which is Julio De Niro and Alexis Lurie. Alexis Lurie, better known as Mickey James. That's his Gathering.
No, to me, she's better known as Alexis Lurie.
Well, yes.
I've only watched NWA-TNA.
You know nothing of hardcore country. You just know Alexis Lurie. Even though you gave out to me last week. It's like, can we just call her Mickey James?
I think, yeah, but now I'm thoroughly gathering build, and I'm in.
So yeah, Raven beats Kid Cash, after which Trinity bails. Oh no, it's the week before actually. It's the Trinity and Alexis rematch.
Yeah, where Raven does his cool gimmick of just walking into the ring mid-match and sitting in the corner,
which I do enjoy. He does it a couple times this month, where he literally just walks to the ring and sits there.
Like, as the match is still
going.
Yeah,
Lurie and Trinity still doing their match, which is pretty good match, fair enough. Like,
it was much better than their tag effort the week before.
It is probably the best women's match in TNA history, which isn't saying much because there's been like 3 of them. So yeah, Trinity won that match. After the match, Raven DDT Trinity as Cash ran away. We'll talk about the Cash and Trinity stuff in a minute.
And just grabs Lurie by the hair and pulls her
It's not even by the hair. He just like grabs her hand and leads her away, and she's like, I guess I'm going with you.
She didn't fight her very much. And then I guess he works quickly because in the span of like an hour, he turns her.
It's a fun note that he did, by all accounts, recommend Lurie to come in for the role. So it's Raven's personal choice.
That sounds like another one of his stupid matches.
But he was using Trinity as a valet on some indies, but they didn't want to turn Trinity heel, so they're like, take Lurie.
Yeah, and you know what? Rest is history.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
So then it takes a couple of weeks until the NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 41, April 16th, where Raven starts the show with Julio and Alexis in the perch and announces them as his new flock, the Gathering.
Yeah, flock you, as the shirt says.
Which, honestly, that's pretty good.
Good bird puns.
And also good pun based on the WCW stable. Yes. You would forget,
because he's a bird.
Raven was like a legit star in WCW.
Yeah, well, you know, he was on the cover of the video game,
which is a fun story in its own right, and just like the director of the game liked Raven and just put him on the cover of the game. Imagine that.
Hey, I knew that story. I set you up for it.
It's like, what if the person in charge of W2K22 just liked Akira Tozawa and decided to put him on the cover of the game?
I think it'd be more like if he liked Sami Zayn and got him on there, you know what I mean?
No. But yeah, like you do forget that Raven was a like legitimate star. He was all over television in like 98, 99 WCW. Like, he was a guy who was featured in programs constantly with Perry Saturn, with Chris Kanyon, with DDP, with Chris Benoit. So Raven is a guy who was seen on television by a lot of people and was a pushed entity in one of the biggest wrestling companies in the world for a while. So he's a big star, I guess, and doing some flock nostalgia makes some degree of sense.
And it's you know, reinvented for the 2003 audience.
So that show is main evented by Jarrett Demands doing a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. He wants to do it with Raven.
It's so dope though, isn't it? Because halfway through that show, he's just in the back of a truck, and Goldie's like, what are you doing? And he has gloves on, and he's just throwing everything out, and he's just screaming for like, where did you put all the stuff from the last one? I want it. Give it to me.
He's throwing like fences and boxes and wooden boards out of this truck, trying to put together his own little Clockwork Orange House of Fun. And yet later in the show, it's the one where Eric Watts walks up to him. He's like giving out to the production crew. It's like, you guys know how to put it together. You've put it together before.
Yeah. Great.
So yeah, he does put together his own Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. Raven does not come out to face him. Instead, Julio De Niro and Alexis Lurie come out to face him.
And he beats the shit out
of him. Which is at least notable that it makes Mickey James the first woman to main event a TNA show.
Yeah, there you go.
This match is at least historically important in a way.
She's a fitting name to get that distinction.
And she won!
Yeah. She won the first time there was a woman in the main event of a TNA show. They won.
Beating the world champion.
Mickey should, like, bring that up
You should
in 2021 Impact and get a shot at
cutting
moves.
promos, because like the knockouts and knockouts tag titles have been recently, like, they've been given world title distinction in Impact, so they're called knockouts world title and knockouts world tag team titles. That should be the reason. She's like, in my first main event I beat the world champion Jeff Jarrett, therefore this is the knockouts world championship.
She should also bring back Julio.
Yeah, and Punk. Julio and Punk should show up on Impact as the Gathering with Mickey James.
But Mickey James is the leader now.
And Punk is just treated like a goon on Impact TV.
He's the Julio.
Yeah. So yeah, they bizarrely, I don't know why they win the match. I don't know why Jarrett can't just beat Julio and LXS3, but here we are.
Yeah, like he should have just won this, and it would have made more sense for the story too.
Yeah, Raven comes out, DDTs him, and they win. So he doesn't. They don't win. Well, technically it is clean. And then Raven lays him out to end the show. Like, it should have just been Jarrett wins, and then Raven comes out and DDTs him. That should have been the angle.
Yeah. It's also very funny to note that, like, Julio getting this whole spot just because he was there one time, and Jimmy Yang didn't want to work a match with Raven.
Yeah, because Jimmy Yang is like, I don't want to sign a contract because it would preclude me from working elsewhere for a period. So I don't want to work this match against Raven. So they're like, you there, Julio, is it? Or you're in this match.
Who, Leo?
That does create history. History is changed by just happenstance.
And now he's in the Gathering, beating the NWA champion in the main event of an Impact pay.
It's worked out pretty well for Julio. This is probably the highlight of his career.
Yeah, good Gathering run.
So, April 23rd, the go-home show, basically, for the big Jarrett and Raven match. Raven promises a surprise for Jeff. That surprise turns out to be Team Extreme assisting Raven.
The mother of all bombs.
Yes.
Bigger than Hiroshima.
A bunch of people who we will not name, because technically it spoils other stories of the month, so you have to wait for later in the show to find out who is in this Team Extreme. But Raven does get the help of Team Extreme to take out Jarrett, to lay him out, to end that show. And Raven has all his old ECW pals killing people.
In a pretty, like, vicious and cool angle, too. Wrapping Jarrett up in the straitjacket, hanging him on the ropes, tying him up with barbed wire, and just going to town on him with Singapore canes.
Yeah, there is an interesting note in the show notes that they wanted that angle to be even more extreme. It was Russo and Raven's idea that they wanted to hang him from the ceiling.
Wow, big Age of the Fall vibes.
Yeah,
huh?
but that was vetoed, and Jarrett wanted to kill all the ECW guys as well at one stage, also vetoed, so they just beat the shit out of him.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a pretty cool angle and came off pretty well.
So that brings us to the final show of the month, where Jeff Jarrett and Raven finally went face to face. They did everything they could, like, before that match, to make the match seem like a big deal.
Oh boy, I just saw all the notes for the main event.
There is literally like 2 pages of notes on the main event. There's a lot that went down behind the scenes around this Raven and Jarrett match. We'll talk about the match itself first. Like, they did everything they could to make this match seem like a big deal. They did a video package for Jarrett. They did a video package for Raven. They had all the roster predict who they thought was going to win between Jarrett and Raven. They did, like, everything they could. And, like, this was the biggest show in TNA history. Like, Dave Meltzer estimates, like, it probably generated another 80,000 on average more than the average TNA pay-per-view does. They had to turn away 1,100 fans. It was a 1,400 sellout. They had to turn away 1,100. That's how many people showed up. Still, a majority of which was papered, which is bizarre that they have, like, a match that at least 2,500 people want to show up to, but I'd imagine only a few hundred paid for. But nonetheless, they did have a full asylum. It is undeniably the biggest match in TNA history to this point. We had, like, a couple of big title matches. We had the Jarrett and Killings match and the Jarrett and Styles match that felt like big title matches.
Still, neither of them felt as big as this. This felt like a pay-per-view main event.
Yeah, this felt like a legitimate, like, 2 biggest stars in the company facing for the title, and where reasonably both guys could have won.
Yeah, I didn't know which guy won. I came into this completely blind and was surprised when Jarrett retained.
Yeah, so Jarrett retains in a, I think, very good match.
I went a little higher on this match than you. I really loved it. I thought this match was, like, kind of the epitome of a big-ass American title main event epic deal with, like, all your run-ins that you'd expect because it's TNA.
13 people, if you're counting. 13 run-ins.
Oh, but they were stables, so it makes sense. Yeah, I really like this a lot. Big kickouts, big spots, good storytelling from all the stuff that led up to it. You had even the callbacks to the sex stuff and them interfering in it as well. You had the callbacks to the Disciples of the New Church who were, like, feuding with everyone in Sex and Team Extreme at this point, and they came out and saved Jarrett, not because they liked Jarrett, but because they hated the other guys. Yeah, and of course we got the big return in the middle of the match.
Indeed, we had a lot of lights out this month. We had two of them. We'll talk about them when we talk about the extreme new church stuff. But yeah, lights go out, and finally, Liam, we get a lights out Sabu moment. Actually, I think it's the second lights out Sabu moment we've had in TNA history. But
Yes.
still, in a month where we had two other lights out ECW stars showing up,
Two disappointing ones.
we do finally get lights out. Sabu shows up. He runs off the Team Extreme, leaving it just down to Jarrett and Raven. Well, then we get a very awkward moment around Jarrett and Raven and some handcuffs.
This is actually the fourth lights out because one guy got the lights out twice.
Jarrett was tied in handcuffs by Team Extreme. Then Bill Behrens ran out with a master key. Rudy Charles couldn't open the handcuffs, so Raven opened the handcuffs.
I like that Raven at least brought it back into the storyline context by like egging him on after he did it. Because like in his mind, he's like, this guy's already dead. Did you see what just happened to him? He got the shit kicked out of him. I hit him with a chair like 3 times.
Yeah, all my boys beat him up. They hit him with super kicks either side of the chairs, and then he hits him with the Raven effect.
In like that was a killer spot.
Yeah, and they did their cool pose.
Kind of a double concerto super kick. Yeah, they all hit their pose in the middle of the ring. It was good stuff. I really like this match. This is the match I would recommend if you haven't seen. Go back and see just for context.
So yeah, Raven hits the Raven effect. Jarrett kicks out. Raven goes for another one. Jarrett reverses into a stroke, hits it, retains the NWA World Title.
Yeah, went 4 1/4 on this. I went
3.75. It is a very, very good. It's probably one of the better examples of the Jeff Jarrett formula. And to be fair, we said that about the AJ title match as well, and that's probably true. These two title matches, like D'Lo, bad example of Jeff Jarrett formula. Raven and Styles, good example of Jeff Jarrett formula.
It'll be very curious to see when this formula grows tired on me. But for right now, I don't mind it. So 4 1/4.
So there was a lot of backstage drama surrounding this match.
All right, let's dig in.
We have many notes. There was a bit of a saga around Sabu coming in, because Sabu rejected TNA's most recent request to return to the company. They asked Scott D'Amore to kind of mediate between the two of them, and Sabu said no. According to newest reports, Sabu was unwilling to talk to Bob Ryder and used several expletives while telling him he would only talk to Jarrett. TNA wanted him to be involved with this Team Extreme story. Then, whatever happened, he probably did talk to Jarrett. They came to terms, he showed up. But Sabu had a torn bicep at this time, but still showed up and just did all his spots and did a freaking double jump dive.
And also landing on a woman in the crowd.
Oh yeah, that's another part of this. Yes, indeed. Sabu, when he did his run in, he ran through the crowd. He just leapt over the guardrail, landed on a woman. So Sabu landed on a female fan while attempting to leapfrog from the guardrail to exit the building. He was so concerned for the fan that he stopped and briefly broke character while checking on her. The fan was said to be shaken up but did not suffer any serious injuries. Sabu credited the woman for taking a better bump than he does while discussing the situation backstage, according to PW Torch.
All these ECW guys, like, they're just more concerned about the fans than they are anything else.
Well, this is the second month in a row that we've had one of them doing something stupid and then a fan getting hurt, so it's less than ideal.
Yeah, they should have cut away from that way quicker, because they just kept it on him as he was checking on her. But at least he checked on her.
He did kill a woman while jumping over the rail, but she seemed to be fine. So, we've talked about the power struggle between Russo, who has the likes of Gilberti, Sanders, Saturn, Raven in his camp, and Jarrett. By all accounts, this was where it came to a head, because Raven's contract with TNA was up on April 30th.
Oh boy.
So, TNA office workers claim a compromise was reached in the struggle between Jarrett and Russo last week. Things came to a head during the April 30th shows. Apparently, the Russo camp and even some Jarrett defenders were in favor of putting the NWA title on Raven, but that didn't really work because Raven wouldn't have a contract. There were some reports that Russo quit and walked out of the building at one point in the evening, but cooler heads prevailed. Russo was backstage by Showtime.
Just do it. Just leave.
Let him leave as well. If someone was like, bro, Raven needs to win, bro. You should be losing here, bro. I'm quitting. It's like, okay, bye. Don't come back. Just don't come back. Also that he'd go to like freaking quitting power plays for that kind of stuff.
Doesn't seem a little petulant.
It does. So they come to the consensus that Russo will be in the office more and be more involved in the like putting together of stories.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. There's still some problems, but apparently like Jeff is dealing with this pretty well, that he's like not giving into Russo's bullshit.
Well, Jeff is becoming a real leader, I assume, is a sentiment that stays throughout TNA's entire history.
The Jarretts have been trying to send a message to Raven by saying that the company will only invest in wrestlers who commit to the company, because Raven did not want to sign a long-term deal. We'll talk about perhaps the reasons why in a moment. But there was a column from JB, from the Inside column that he publishes weekly on the TNA website. TNA officials have let it be known that the magic word from here on out is commitment. The company will commit to those who do so in return on all levels. Plain and simple. That was a statement put out in the company website.
That rules. I was going to say, I like that they just do insider shit on their website.
Yeah, they're working angles all the time because Raven's contract, as mentioned, was up. He had never signed a long-term deal and resisted signing a long-term deal. He'd been working shows on a per-show basis. Like, there's some debate about whether or not Raven winning the title depended on him signing a contract, but the consensus appears to be that Jarrett was retaining it regardless anyway.
Wait, so, like, did Raven want to win the belt without signing the contract?
Well, it's an interesting note because we talk about Red this month, who did win the X title as well, which we'll talk about when we get the X in a moment. But Red had to sign a multi-show deal. Red was also working like on a show-to-show deal, and he had to sign a multi-show deal before they'd let him win the X belt.
I don't know, seems fair.
So there's people who believe that Jarrett used Raven's contract status as an excuse not to drop the title. There's all these kind of political things going on backstage. It's good fun.
Yeah, this is why we're here, you know? We're not here for nothing happening backstage.
So the big reason that he was working for about $1,000 a show and he wanted $1,500. Like, Jarrett makes $3,000 a show, but he works as more than just a wrestler. Dusty makes $1,500, so he's the highest paid, like, just wrestler. And Raven wanted Dusty money.
I mean, I don't know. He's kind of the biggest name on the show at the moment.
And he probably has a very good bargaining hand at this particular point because this is the biggest match in TNA history. As mentioned, there's an estimated $80,000 of extra revenue because of this match. You saw about 2,500 people showing up to the Asylum to try and see this match. I'd imagine it probably did their best pay-per-view buy rate, maybe in a very long time, maybe ever. So Raven can be like, I'm a draw here, give me my money.
That's always the dilemma. It's like, if stars want to pull star shit, they better actually be stars who make money for the company. And, you know, if you're drawing that kind of stuff, you can probably give the man his extra $2,000 a month.
The Observer has some, like, fun, what other people were paid notes. When Shawn Maltman and Scott Hall were in, they were making $2,000 each, but Hall in the early days was making $7,500 per show.
Woo!
That is some big boy money right there. BG James was making $2,000 but agreed to cut it to $1,000 before he quit because, as we mentioned last month, they wouldn't give his dad a $50 pay rise. So, like, we know Raven doesn't go away, so this is sorted out, and Raven is there for another freaking 4 years. So, and comes back a couple times after that.
Does he sign?
I would imagine so.
Like, to a deal? Curious.
So I'm sure we'll talk about that more in weeks and months to come. But yes, a lot of backstage drama surrounding this Jarrett-Raven match about contracts expiring and power struggles between Vince Russo and Jeff Jarrett. But the match was good.
Yeah, and that's all that matters. Actually, to be fair, in this company, that's one of the least things that matters. Let's get more into the dirt.
Let's start with Raven and the franchise, which had their big, it wasn't quite the blow off because they're still feuding, but the culmination of their feud so far on the September 17th NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 62, in which they finally had, Liam, a hair versus hair match.
This was a pretty, like, okay, this match took a bit to get going, but by the end of it, I was like, yeah, this rocked.
So yeah, it's a very much a Raven and Shane Douglas match, where it's like two guys kind of doing plodding, brawling around ringside. Like, Shane Douglas is never going to blow your mind with a series of sequences you've never seen before, but what Shane Douglas can do is he can bring a crowd into a match and get them invested in it. So, like, even if he's still just doing basic plodding, brawling, at least the crowd are into it.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think Raven's having a tremendous run as a babyface. I think he's, like, maybe at the peak of his career as a worker at this stage.
Ever since he made that change, he's been killing.
He's just, like, legitimately good.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that switch. And, like, I think even just before it, because I really enjoyed the Jarrett match as well, but he's been, like, firing on all cylinders.
We must mention, Liam.
Okay, before we mention the incident, I want to give Shane Douglas some credit here.
Okay.
Because my man, he rolled with the punches.
He really did.
And he honestly, post the incident, it might have been the best work of the match. So, fair play to the dude for keeping going and then, like, tearing it up another level.
So this match is, like, 15 minutes long. Like halfway through, Shane Douglas is leaning against the ropes, and he throws up. He just a little bit of vomit leaves his mouth. And then he moves over to Raven, and a little bit more vomit leaves his mouth. And then him and Raven do a little sequence that ends him with him being, like, kicked by Raven, and he turns around, and a large amount of vomit leaves his mouth.
And, like, a dark viscous.
It's a weird, like, texture to it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's rough.
Because it's not like chunks or anything. It's literally straight liquid coming out of his mouth.
Yeah.
This gross yellow liquid just like... It's the fact that he throws up in 3 stages as well. Like, there's the little bit of vomit, the second little bit of vomit, and then the third lot of vomit. It's just like, there's an escalating series of vomit from Shane Douglas here.
Yeah. We should mention too that this was the show that we did the live reaction to. So if you want to see the live reaction to this,
and yeah, I set it up for Liam where it's like, I was like, this is a big Shane Douglas match, and Liam was like, why? And it's like, oh, you'll see.
and I was like, oh, maybe he delivers performance of a lifetime.
No, he just gawks in the middle of the ring.
Ugh.
I will say, credit to Mike Tenay, the proest of pros, who's like, that's how physical this match is. That's how, like, intense this rivalry is. They don't no sell it. They don't pretend the man didn't just vomit in the middle of the ring. They presented the vomit as, like, this is the true escalation of this rivalry. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't blame him. Like, shit's probably crazy at the moment. But, again, like, hey, he brought the match back after this, so I can't be too mad at the guy.
To be fair, we don't know that it wasn't worked vomit.
Yeah, it might have been worked vomit. It didn't look like real vomit. It might have been worked vomit.
Or it might have been real vomit, but he can just one of those people who can trigger himself to throw up at any time. So he's like, let's work it into the angle, baby.
He's got a puke.
We don't have worked vomit. We have, obviously, blood is the big thing in wrestling. But, like, someone throwing up is like, it is a visceral indication of how intense a match is.
Yeah. Someone should take that. Someone should... Okada, next Dome main event, 56 minutes in, should throw up.
Wrist control. He grabs the wrist. He turns the other direction. It's like, ugh!
He does the rainmaker, pulls him out as he comes in. He just throws up on him.
Or instead of doing like mist, somebody should do vomit in the face.
Ugh, that's just disgusting. Remember when like they did the hour draw with Omega and Okada, and Omega dodged the rainmaker by like just falling and collapsing due to exhaustion?
Yeah.
How much more impactful would that have been if Omega just threw up?
And threw up in 3 different stages like Franchise did.
Dodging every rainmaker by throwing up.
You see, he throws up in front of Okada, and Okada slips in the vomit and then misses the rainmaker.
No, he throws up in front of Okada, then Okada gets sick and throws up.
And it's just an escalating series of vomit.
Oh, what if Raven was a guy who throws up when he sees throw up? Alright, let's get off the throwing up.
Yeah. So, finish, they go up top. Raven hits a gnarly looking Raven effect off the top rope through a table.
Yeah.
And Shane Douglas
what a finish, huh?
takes a nasty bump. Well, it's not the finish because Raven goes for the cover. 1, 2. Technically, Franchise kicks out, but lights go out. I did quite enjoy mentioning the watch. I liked that Franchise kicked out because, like, why didn't the referee just count 3 just that the lights are off? I guess he doesn't see the shoulders anymore. It's good refereeing, I suppose. But...
good refereeing either way.
Yeah, so the Franchise kicks out so that the referee doesn't lose some integrity, doesn't lose some credibility. The mystery man, who we've seen for weeks at this stage, maybe even months, I think he goes all the way back to July, who's been attacking Raven, is finally revealed to be Vampiro.
Yeah.
Vampiro hits Raven with the DDT, Franchise pins him, and then Raven gets his head shaved.
He sure fucking does.
Yeah.
This is, like, genuinely uncomfortable.
It really is. So they sit Raven in the chair, and Mike Tenay and Don West go into overdrive, where, like, they are absolutely furious. They are absolutely outraged that this is how Raven's going to lose his hair. And Don's like, oh, I wouldn't even blame him if he doesn't go through with it. Then Mike Tenay is like, no, he's a man of honor. Even though he's been done wrong, he's still going to sit there and have his head shaved. So James Mitchell picks up the clippers, Liam. He picks them up, upside down. Ugh. And shaves Raven's head and literally scalps the man. He, like, literally takes chunks out of his head as he's shaving Raven's head. You can see the blood trickling off his skull. It's even worse. They show a video package and a promo the next week where you can see the scars on his head from what, like, all the blood and all the cuts that, like, this head shave gave him. And, like, to be fair, it made the head shave, like, 100 times more intense.
Oh, this angle was so much more impactful now.
It's such a better angle because he was legitimately scalped in the middle of the ring here live in an NWA-TNA pay-per-view. But God, it must have sucked. And you can see Raven's face.
Oh, he wanted to not take this so badly in the moment.
Like, you can see him wincing. You can see him being like, fuck, why does this hurt so much?
Yeah, there's a couple things about it, because it's like, first of all, obviously, sucks a Raven, but like fair play to him for just gritting his teeth and taking it.
And you can see him, he's literally gritting his teeth as well. He's like, "Arr!"
And I'm not glad it happened, but fuck, like, it turns this angle like a whole up another level, doesn't it?
It turns it from like a regular hair angle to something like that feels legitimately different and special.
And it's already like the best feud in the company too. So like it really just puts it to that next level. I really hope that the payoff matches are worth it.
Well, we do get a Raven Vampiro match, so you can look forward to that.
I hope it's worth it.
You can see the build. I think actually all the Vampiros matches take place in October. I think the whole thing happens in October, and then Vampiro's never seen again. So
That makes sense. It's the most spookiest month of the year.
it is. You have to do the spooky Raven Vampiro month all through the month of October.
Yeah. This match is crazy.
Yeah. You get the vomit, you get the top rope DDT, you get the actual legitimate scalping of Raven. You get Vampiro. Vampiro's there too, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough Vampiro to get super excited for this, but his Pentagon match was like almost legitimately like a perfect match, so.
Yeah, Vampiro is a good worker in his day. I liked Vampiro in WCW, even if a lot of what he did in WCW wasn't very good.
Yeah, I'm excited to give this a shot.
So we have a few backstage notes. Let's start with who the mystery reveal was originally meant to be, Liam. You suggested at one stage you'd like to see it be Ricky Banderas, better known as Judas Macias. That was in fact the original choice. From the Wrestling Observer, the original choice for the mystery guy was Ricky Banderas, but that was nixed a ways back because of the idea nobody would know him if he was unmasked, which is probably a good idea.
It's true.
Another point, CM Punk was considered, which I think would be a pretty good twist, a good turn, and that's the reason like he's a mystery man.
But the guy was like clearly a big dude.
CM Punk was just wearing some platform shoes.
Fair enough.
And then the other one was Terry Funk, but Funk turned him down.
Funk would have ruled. Funk would have ruled so hard.
So Vampiro was like the fourth choice.
Hey man, they're not four bad names.
And in terms of like who fits best with the new church, like Vampiro's probably the best option.
I don't know, I like Terry Funk with the new church.
Funk, demonic Funk.
He doesn't even need to be demonic. He's just a bad motherfucker. Like, imagine James Mitchell and Terry Funk promos on Raven.
So there was a backstage incident between Raven and Jim Mitchell after the September 17th show, based on how rough before James Mitchell got his hair.
Yeah.
Before the show, Jeff Jarrett gave Raven and Mitchell instructions in front of several wrestlers in the locker room. One wrestler overheard Mitchell ask Jarrett if there was a certain way he should hold the clippers when he cut Raven's hair. Jarrett told him to simply press down until the hair started coming off. However, Mitchell held the clippers the wrong way and left Raven's scalp a bloody mess. When Raven got backstage, Mitchell approached him to apologize. Raven took a swing at Mitchell, although observers say it looked as if Raven thought better of punching Mitchell and actually pulled the punch. Raven yelled at Mitchell, but they made up the next day.
I'm glad.
Probably because Raven's like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, it's actually a great angle, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I wonder how far away from the incident happening was Raven and Mitchell like, okay, that ruled though, right?
Yeah. Because I get like the immediate visceral come backstage, your head is bleeding like shit and you just have to sit there in a great deal of pain. You'd probably like emotionally charged. But if you like watched it back the next day, you're like, fuck, that was a great angle.
And Raven like 3 days later is for sure being like, yeah, that was the plan.
And like you can see them being sat down, and Raven sat down, and they show him in the mirror, and you can see like behind him with like Douglas and everybody like, cackling with glee at how they've shaved Raven's head, and Raven's looking at his changed visage, and God, it's good. That's pro wrestling, Liam. That's pro wrestling.
Like it's the perfect mix of like real emotion, real violence, and camp, which is like perfect pro wrestling. And also, like, shout out to Raven. My man looks handsome with a shaved head.
He does. He looks well.
So, he really won out in the long run with all this. He got the big payoff for shaving his head, too. So, yeah, my man did great.
So that brings us to the broad topics for the month that is NWA-TNA in December 2003. We will start with, not the world title scene, let's start with Raven and The Gathering.
Yeah, the most fun part of these shows.
Yeah.
Which is like, I feel like we've been saying Raven, the most fun part of these shows for the last like 8 months.
Yeah, because consistently Raven is always siloed off in his own little story. Fair enough, this month he's reorbiting back into the Jarrett world because they're building back to that again. But Raven is always just off doing his own thing, having good matches on good shows and telling decent... Like, he's working with the red shirts this month, so it's not great. But it's better than nothing. So, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 73, December 3rd, 2003. Raven and Gathering face Abyss and the Red Shirts. They have a backstage promo before that where Raven insists once again that despite the pain he wants to inflict on Abyss and the Red Shirts, this Gathering reunion is only for one night, Liam.
My favorite thing about this was them selling throughout the show that, wow, the Gathering, back together. I'm like, it was like 4 weeks ago that they were like last teamed. This isn't like they're trying to sell it like some big deal as like Raven and the Gathering back together. It's like I think he only declared his independence from the Gathering like a month ago.
Yeah, it was after the hair versus hair match where it's just like, guys, we did it. You're free. Go do what you want. And then they spent the entire month pestering him. So it wasn't even like they were away from Raven. It wasn't like they were deprived of Raven. They were with Raven in every segment.
At least if they had have like done their own thing for the month and like had like a mini tag feud with someone, we could be like, he's called back his old friends, blah, blah, blah. You can still have them pine for Raven the whole time, but keep them separate so them coming back together is actually a selling point.
As opposed to just the thing you're doing because you decided to do it because it builds to a story.
Or just a thing that you're telling us is a thing.
The classic pro wrestling story of tell us the story you think you told instead of telling us the story you actually told. So then Abyss and the Red Shirts defeated Raven and the Gathering in a 6-man tag team match after Abyss spears a chair into Raven.
That was a weird spot.
Yeah.
I had to watch it back a couple times to like, what actually happened?
It feels like a spot that should hurt Abyss just as much as it hurts Raven.
Well, it probably does, but he doesn't care.
And he's a monster.
Yeah.
I love Raven. The entire month, like he clearly came up with a thing he thought was a very good line, which was like, nothing escapes a black hole, but you hit me with the black hole stab and I'm still standing. And he says that like 4 times this month. He's like, oh, it's a good line. I've got to get it in.
It's not that great of a line.
No. Abyss and the Red Shirts go back and forth with the Gathering a couple of times trying to take out Raven, but the Gathering eventually run them off.
Sweet. It was a fun little match.
There's a lot of weird little segments like that this month where it's like, it's not a clean Gathering attack and save, you know? It's more like Abyss tries to take out one, but then someone else comes in, but then they're taken out, but someone else comes in, and then it looks like they're going to beat them down, but they make their own comeback. And it's like, okay, I don't know.
I don't mind the Red Shirts like, all right, we're just going to beat up people until we know what side you're on. It's a fun little thing.
So based on Abyss pinning Raven in this match, that brings us to NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 74, December 10th, 2003, in which that match was Raven versus Abyss, in a rivalry that we'll see blossom for a few years, including a world title match in 2005, but here is their first match right here.
I'm more looking forward to these later matches. Kind of disappointed by this one, but I was also like, I know that we're going to get probably better ones at some point.
Yeah, it had a DQ finish. And this is a reoccurring theme in this month and the previous month of TNA in particular, where it's like, what causes an actual DQ is very confusing. Because, like, there's a spot where somebody goes through a table, there's a bunch of interference already, then the Red Shirts get into the ring, which is like the 3rd or 4th instance of interference in this match. Raven hits them, with he fends them off. They don't even attack Raven, but Rudy calls for the DQ anyway. It's like, there's outside interference in this match. There's spears through tables, which the table exploded in a very satisfying fashion, by the way.
Yeah, that was a good table bump.
Just boom, table go pow. And like this match was built around Abyss doing bear hugs for some reason. He's a bear hug guy now.
Yeah, I like the bear hug.
He's just hugging Raven. Who doesn't want to give Raven just a nice hug?
Who doesn't want to give Abyss a nice hug?
Yeah, it's very strange. But yeah, this entire match was just a DQ for some reason. I don't know. It makes no sense. And this is a company-wide problem at the moment where it's like, I don't mind if you want to be the company that's like, we don't do rules that much. We don't do DQs. We just let people do brawls. I'm okay with that.
It's like my theory about like spooky shit in wrestling. I don't mind it if it exists within the established canon of the company.
Yeah.
If you have a company where you acknowledge that spooky shit exists, I'm fine with it. If you have a company where you're like, DQs are lenient and it's been that way, I don't mind it. But when you decide to suddenly incorporate this element into that universe without having any sort of explanation, that's when I find that's when that disconnect comes out and becomes noticeable.
Yeah, because when it's, they do a table bump, they do interference, and then suddenly it's a DQ because they get in the ring. And again, they don't even beat up Raven. Raven fights them off as Rudy calls for the DQ, which is again against like the general rule of wrestling, where it's like if the babyface fights off the interference, it's not a DQ, is the general rule. It's only when they attack somebody that's an actual DQ. But what's the rule in this company? There is none. You can put somebody through a table, but you can't fight somebody running in the ring? I don't know. It's weird.
I feel like they should have just made the chair shot the DQ.
Oh, God. Yeah. Gathering and the Red Shirts brawl for a while. And the end of this segment is Raven hits Abyss in the face with a steel chair. Not in the head. In the face.
I hope the mask took most of it.
It's just a vile looking chair shot. Do you think a mask can absorb a chair shot?
I don't know. What's the mask made of?
Is it some kind of like, what's the thing that Black Panther wears that absorbs the energy and then puts it out?
I don't want to say adamantium, but is it adamantium?
It's vibranium, isn't it?
Vibranium. Adamantium is Wolverine.
Yeah, so it's made of vibranium, so when you hit Abyss in the face, it actually builds up energy and allows them to hit people harder. That's canon.
We're making up all the Abyss canon. We're going to be able to write one of those in-canon books like a bit like a Kane had.
The true story of Abyss.
Yeah.
Earlier in this show, we did also get a Gathering versus Red Shirts match. Gathering won after De Niro rolled up Northcutt.
It was a decent little match. I like seeing the Gathering actually work well as a team now.
And like,
they've got some chemistry.
The Red Shirts aren't good, but Northcutt did this real cool pump handle like overhead throw a couple times this month, and it was cool.
The Red Shirts aren't good, but Northcutt has been a sentence I've said a million times.
Yeah, because like he's not a good wrestler, but he does occasionally do cool power moves. So you're like, you know what? He's not awful.
And I like his backstory of bouncing in the streets of New Orleans.
Yes, he is a martial artist who fights off people in the streets of New Orleans who get too rowdy.
That's the perfect pro wrestling character.
Yeah, if he wasn't the security man, he would be much better off.
Yeah.
But he's perfect in the role of 6-man tags where he can just pop in and do one of his cool power moves and pop out, and he doesn't actually have to wrestle.
Yeah, I don't mind the Red Shirts as wrestlers, to be honest. Because they've either done that, they've done plunder with people who are good at plunder, or they've squashed nerds.
Mm-hmm. And even, I know you preferred the Ryan Wilson era over the Joey Legend era, but Legend is a nice little wrestler, even if he's not particularly interesting.
I like this version of Legend more than, like, Rival to the Stars.
Weird. So yeah, Raven hits Abyss in the face. Again, right in the face. Horrifying looking thing. Made just a sadistic noise. Right in the face with a steel chair, and then he made a challenge next week for a steel cage match.
Ooh.
Then Don Callis later accepted the challenge. There's a note about Don Callis. Wrestlers are mockingly referring to Don Callis as Butthead because of his resemblance to the character from Beavis and Butthead.
That's rude.
You know what though? I see it.
A little bit. He is a man who has aged gracefully.
Yeah, he doesn't look like Butthead anymore, so people can't call him Butthead in 2022. He looks nothing like Butthead now.
He looks like a suave older gentleman now.
He's like, I'll never be called Butthead again.
Is Callis like signed to AEW?
I have no idea.
That's an interesting, because like he kind of disappeared for a while after the Impact stuff, and then like he's back though. Like I assume he'll be back when Kenny's back.
But Kenny will probably be coming back as a baby face. So Don with them?
Maybe Don brings in someone else? Maybe Don is like Jay White's guy?
That would be an interesting choice.
Interesting. So, like, well, because like I just think it makes sense like to continue the theme of Jay White being the guy who like replaces Kenny.
Callis is said to be taking these butthead comments in his stride. Although Callis had a lot of locker room heat during his run-in with WWE, he was well liked in ECW and is also popular in the TNA locker room.
Hey, Don Callis, you're also popular with me.
So yes, Don Callis accepts that 6-man tag team challenge for the next week, which is our main event of NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 67, December 7th. The Gathering and Raven face the Red Shirts and Abyss inside a steel cage. Earlier in the show, there is an interview with The Gathering and CM Punk where Punk says that he and Julio are there to make sure Raven gets what he deserves. Now, in the context of that promo, it of course is to suggest, because if Raven wins this match, he will face Jeff Jarrett for the NWA title on the January 7th pay-per-view. So in the context of that promo, it's the world title shot he deserves, of course, Liam. But perhaps he has an alternative meaning.
I like to imagine that Raven's so like narcissistic that he's like, yeah, I will get what I deserve. And he didn't go, huh? Wait, what?
You're not going to betray me, are you?
Nah, that'd be silly. Punk, they're so devoted.
There was a moment in this promo where Raven lost the thread of his promo. He started a line and then shifted to another. And then you just see Punk behind him start corpsing. And he's like starts chuckling to himself and he's clearly trying to hold it in.
Yeah, for like a minute. He gets it right back towards the end. He just gets it in time.
Yeah.
But like, you gotta remember, like Punk's been working with this dude for a year in 2 companies. Like they probably don't have enough rapport now.
Yeah, because when Raven does the quote the Raven Nevermore, Punk also mouths along to the Nevermore.
Nevermore.
Because they're devoted, but also nevermore will they team with them.
Yeah. Very good.
So yes, main event, steel cage match. Abyss and the Red Shirts defeat Raven and the Gathering after CM Punk and Julio De Niro turn on Raven, hit him with a concerto, and drape Abyss over Raven. The Gathering have exploded.
I mean, I never thought this would happen.
There was no foreshadowing here. To be fair, like this is one of those where it does make perfect sense that they're thoroughly devoted to Raven. They loved him. They wanted to do everything for him. But Raven spurned that love unless it was convenient to him. So, like, they're perfectly in their rights to turn on Raven.
Hey, Raven's in the wrong here.
You just wanted to use us when it was convenient to fight Abyss and the Red Shirts. You didn't care about us. You don't want to be our friends.
And if you want to bring it right back, he was also physically and mentally abusing them.
Yeah, he shoved bleach down Alexis Lurie's throat.
And, like, sent them to the wolves multiple times to get beat up instead of him.
Yeah, so it does make a lot of sense. The one thing you could criticize is that it was the classic, they worked a full steel cage match and then turned on Raven.
Which I only accept in Dragon Gate.
Which, like, it does make some degree of sense. Because the Gathering aren't joining Jarrett's stable. There will be another development of this in January. So it's not like they're joining the other side. They're still at odds with the other side. But still, it would make a lot more sense to just hit Raven with the chair at the start of the match and not do a bloody violent cage match.
Yeah.
Like, this match isn't great, but Punk does an elbow drop off a cage?
Which, like, he lands, like, weirdly vertically.
Yeah, it's very strange because they do a double stack of a table, they put Abyss on top, and he does an elbow drop off the cage through 2 tables, which is a cool looking spot, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of the double stack tables.
Is that Punk's only off the cage moment of his career?
I'd have to go back and watch the Raven ones.
Yeah, I don't know his Ring of Honor stuff to know whether or not he has done moves off of cages. I'm pretty sure he hasn't in WWE.
I think he did in Ring of Honor.
So yeah, elbow drop off the cage through 2 tables. It's pretty cool. But the match is so, like, utterly chaotic that while he is doing that, Jarrett and Styles are brawling on the ramp and Sting comes out right after he does it. So it's just utter chaos.
Which I kind of don't mind if you're doing, like, this is meant to be a chaotic match, you know?
Yeah, it works. I think that just the one thing is it maybe doesn't give Punk the emphasis he deserves for a dude that just did an elbow drop off a cage.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like, it literally cuts away to Sting as he lands. Like, Sting walks out immediately after. But yeah, that's the big turn, the big swerve. The Gathering have turned on Raven. They're going out on their own, and that's our feud heading into January. The thing that takes Raven once again away from the path of challenging Jeff Jarrett for the world title.
From his destiny.
Yes, his destiny is once again derailed, Liam, as the Gathering has betrayed him.
He has to go beat his kids.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Yeah, well, this wasn't a Vince Russo thing. His metaphorical kids. But with literal beatings. Unlike with Vince Russo, where it was his literal kids but metaphorical beatings.
Yeah, of course. It's an important distinction. Raven's feud with the Gathering continues into February, starting with the Sandman and the debuting hardcore legend Terry Funk facing the Gathering.
It's nice to see Funk. It's nice to see Funk talk about his constipated horse.
So, yeah. Funk and Sandman do a promo before the match. They're talking to Scott Hudson, and Sandman's like, here's my partner, it's Terry Funk. And Terry Funk is like, you wouldn't think we'd get along. But, my wife is crazy. My kids are crazy. My horse is constipated all the time. I'm surrounded by crazy, so I can get along with the Sandman because he's crazy too.
Makes sense.
It's a perfect promo.
Yeah, it's about as good as it gets.
Classic Terry Funk talking about his constipated horse immediately in TNA.
Yeah, that's about right.
So we do have the match. It's the Sandman and Terry Funk against the Gathering. Funk does a moonsault, which is pretty cool.
It's always nice to see him busted out.
And he's like 60 at this stage, so hell yeah. Probably shouldn't be doing moonsaults, but still, he's Terry Funk.
Ah, fuck, it's Terry Funk.
The Gathering win with their slam elbow drop on a chair, and then Funk ran off the Gathering after the match.
It was a fun, decent little affair. It was nice to see Funk and Punk.
Yeah, I think the match that I have later in the month is even better, so we'll talk about that in a second.
I like the match in yellow gear. I think that was the later match.
A note on this match, Sandman was knocked out cold for a few seconds when he was struck by a chair at ringside during his tag match with Terry Funk against CM Punk and Julio De Niro. Sandman was dazed after the match and was sporting a golf ball-sized lump next to one of his eyes. Sandman couldn't remember how he was knocked out. He asked Punk and De Niro if either one of them hit him with a chair shot during the match. They both denied it. Turns out it was actually Punk. He threw a chair that struck Sandman. There was some why did he deny it? Huh?
Punk's not making friends in TNA at this point.
It's a bad month for Punk.
Especially when he's like, I'm not going to be mad. Just I want to know why I got the fucking knocked out.
It's like, I just want to know. I just want to know what happened. Maybe Punk, maybe, I don't know. The people give him the benefit of the doubt here. That, why would he deny it when it's on camera? Maybe he just, he threw a chair and he didn't realize it hit Sandman, something like that.
Yeah. That's the thing, he could have just thrown it out of the ring.
So there was another note about Terry Funk and Shane Douglas. There was some tension between Shane Douglas and Terry Funk prior to the show. As all of the wrestlers were getting their instructions for the show opening segment, Funk approached Douglas and apparently asked if they could let bygones be bygones. Those watching from a distance say Douglas made it clear that he didn't want anything to do with Funk and basically blew him off. The heat between the two stems from an incident that took place while the two of them were working a match for XPW, Rob Black's promotion, and Funk was cut by a bottle, which he blamed Douglas for.
Alright, Douglas, come on.
Yeah, when Terry Funk, universally beloved pro wrestler, walks up to you and like, can we just let it lay in the past? We, let sleeping dogs lay. We can get along. And Douglas is like, no, ooh, franchise, no.
Especially when the ensuing incident seems to be that you cut him with a bottle.
Yeah, he seems to be the one being like, yeah, let's let it go. Let's move on. And you're still like, no.
I don't know. Maybe it was a Punk scenario. He's like, I didn't do it.
Someone else cut you with the bottle, Funk. Funk and Punk.
It's XPW. But you can't say without a shadow of a doubt that it wasn't someone else who cut him.
So during the America's X Cup show, Terry Funk just ambles out and cuts a promo.
Now we need to have a little break in between the semis, I guess, and the main.
Yeah, it's kind of a rambling promo. The crowd don't really care. The most notable thing about it, so this promo, he's announcing that, Sandman can't be there, so he needs a new partner. So he finally got on the phone. He called Raven, and Raven's going to come back and face the Gathering next week. And when he says the words Raven, the crowd apparently react so little that they pump in crowd noise.
Oh, I did think, I was like, when I was reading that it didn't make noise, I was like, oh, I thought they made noise.
No, if you go back and listen to it, it's very clear. He's like, and I'll bring back Raven. And then it's like, woo!
Yeah, I just thought people were really excited.
It's a full Thunderdome pop. The stealing the Thunderdome from TNA. Again, the influence of February 2004 TNA. You get the Rainmaker, stolen. You get Taichi's pants, stolen.
Who stole Taichi's pants? No. Someone find them.
Thunderdome, stolen. All these things. TNA's influence knows no bounds.
Yeah.
So February 18th, you do get the Gathering facing Terry Funk and the returning Raven in a match I really enjoyed. Terry Funk bled a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, that was impressive. And it's been a minute since we've seen that much blood, I feel. So it didn't actually feel like overdone at this point.
I think Funk is the only person that bleeds this month, right?
Which is a miracle.
Yeah, and in this era of TNA, having only one person bleed is quite remarkable.
I thought it was fun. And yeah, like I said, this was cool because I really like just the interactions between Funk, Raven, Punk.
And Julio.
And Julio too. Why not? Let's check him in there.
Or Julio. You don't want to leave him out.
I liked the gear in this. I thought it was really neat.
Yeah, Punk should have worn the yellow shorts at All Out. Was that show? No, Revolution. He should have worn the yellow shorts, not the white shorts.
Sure.
Much fancier.
I liked it.
There was a lovely touch when they were getting the heat on Funk. He was like wandering around and he had a lot of blood in his eyes, so he didn't know what corner to go to. So he started wandering toward the Gathering corner before like stumbling back into the Raven corner.
That's good wrestling right there.
Raven, much better hot tag than Apollo did earlier.
Yes.
Is it a hot take to say Raven's a better wrestler than Apollo?
Yes.
It should be noted, Raven did come out wearing like the jorts, wearing like the shirt tied around his waist, the classic old school Raven look.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was in this match or on the last match or just the last match of the month. But he also got like a rip-off version of his ECW theme.
Oh god, yeah, that's the last show of the month. It's terrible.
It's fine.
It's really bad.
It sounds like the song.
It's really bad. Especially like his TNA theme is great. It's really, really good. And then he has this terrible theme song for the last show of the month.
I don't know. It sounds like Come Out and Play. And I think that's just the whole point.
It doesn't fit him at all, though. It's far too upbeat.
Yeah, but that's what he's... It's the ECW theme, man.
But it's even worse because like he comes out here to his Raven theme dressed in his old Raven look. And then he comes out the next week and he's not even dressed in the old school Raven look. He's back to wearing a kilt.
If they were going to do the song, they should have done it when he was wearing the ECW gear.
He's wearing the ECW gear here with his theme, and then he has the theme next week, but doesn't have the gear anymore.
Yeah, that is a weird touch. I don't know. Yeah, he should have done the music last week.
So, post-match angle, James Mitchell comes out with a stun gun. We'll talk about that in a sec. He goes to stun Raven, but he gets Funk instead. Funk throws himself in the way of the stun gun to take the blow for Raven.
I was a little worried about that. I was like, ooh.
Well, you should be worried, because they used a real stun gun.
Of course they did. I mean, why are we... Okay, listen. Old Jim Mitchell. Why do we keep giving you real things?
Last month it was real ether to knock out Raven. This month it's a real stun gun to take out Terry Funk.
Yep.
Note from the PW Torch, TNA used a real stun gun for the angle between Terry Funk, Jim Mitchell, and Raven. Mitchell was said to be nervous about using the stun gun and half-jokingly told wrestlers he couldn't believe that TNA entrusted the single most physically inept person in the locker room to zap a 60-year-old man with a taser gun. When Mitchell was asked what would happen if he accidentally stunned Funk, he said there would be 2 coroner's trucks, one for Funk and one for himself after the other wrestlers finished killing him.
You know, that is fair enough, though.
If you were the man who killed Terry Funk, you would not make it out of that locker room alive.
If I was the man who killed Terry Funk, I wouldn't allow myself to make it out of the locker room alive.
You would be the one to take yourself down.
Yeah, of course. Raven
cuts a promo later in the show. Actually, I quite liked. I was kind of mad when I saw that Funk took a taser for Raven, and Raven didn't even check on him. But then he did the promo later in the show where he's like, I started putting other people's feelings before my own, and look at what it did for me.
That's why he's doing it now. Like, that's why, like, that wasn't a revelation due to what happened in that match.
No.
That was something that he came into that match with that attitude.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was like, in the match, I was like, are you really not even going to check on Terry Funk? But then he did the promo where being like, I'm not going to look after anybody anymore.
Yeah. Ah, sorry, I thought you were, like, confused as to why that happened after that, but...
No,
yeah.
I was confused when it happened. It's like, geez, the dude took a taser for you. At least you could do is like, are you okay? But no, he did the backstage promo afterward being like, oh, after all these last 5 weeks, I wallowed in my own pain and misery and self-loathing, and I realized that me looking out for other people started to become the problem, and that's the reason I'm not going to do that anymore. But also, I'm going to bring Sabu next week.
Mm-hmm.
My pal Sabu is going to show up.
Yeah, the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal. Death-defying.
So, last show of the month, Sabu and Raven face the Gathering in this long series of ECW guys against the Gathering match in CM Punk and Julio De Niro's last match in TNA.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah,
it's it feels bad not to get like the ending, you know.
Well, at least he lost the Raven. You know, it's not the worst place to leave it.
But also, then he cuts a promo. He's like, "I'm gonna kill each of you," and it's like, "I guess you did."
Yeah, they're done. They're dead. He did it. All right, let's wrap up with the last feud for the month. One that wasn't the worst: Sabu and Raven.
Just Sabu. You know what?
Go on.
I think that this feud was pretty good.
Yeah, so Raven started the month with losing the King of the Mountain match before then pivoting into his proper feud with Sabu.
I was gonna say I like this feud because it actually felt like Sabu was getting something.
Yeah, which is for the first time in TNA history, basically.
So maybe his like debut was the last time he had something.
When he faced Shamrock or Malice
in a ladder match.
In a ladder submission match.
I mean, that was one of the best eras of TNA because it was just freak show wrestling.
Yeah, and people would show up all the time and then disappear and then show up again.
Which never happens now. Gorgeous George.
You got Shamrock and Gorgeous George this month.
That's less fun than Sabu.
Shamrock's pretty cool, except he's bad in TNA.
So. He had a really bad last run. I'm not exactly fucking doing flips over it.
So, June 9th, NWA-TNA baby number 98, Raven is sitting outside the building where he has issued a challenge to Sabu.
Yeah, I like this setting in a different spot. I think that's cool.
Mm.
I like his kind of homebrew version of the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match.
Mm.
Yeah, I dig this little aesthetic choice.
My favorite part is they do a second one of these where Raven's just standing outside holding a burning kendo stick.
Good in these like pre-edited promo stuff.
Yeah, and then Sabu is like sitting backstage pensively looking at a photo of the original Sheik.
Talking to his best friend Sanjay Dutt.
His close personal friend Sanjay.
Which, of course, Sanjay goes into the gut check match as well.
Yeah, so franchise is outside with Raven. Raven is happy Douglas is an interviewer now. Raven points out that he's never had a singles match with Sabu. And then Raven says it's because Sabu is scared of him.
I like that we find out almost immediately that this isn't the case, but Raven still runs with it.
Yeah, he's just like, he's afraid of me. He doesn't want to fight me. He's a little bitch.
Which I did enjoy.
Sanjay does, as he mentioned, have a gut check match. He defeats David Young, D-Ray 3000 and Shark Boy. I don't know why Sanjay's on the chopping block, but listen, he lost that best of 3 against Red, I guess.
I don't like the gut check match. It just feels mean.
It does. It's like, you suck and you might be
But also,
fired.
like, no one ever actually gets fired for losing him, so...
Yeah.
And then, of course, he gets the win and he immediately, like, leaves the building.
Yeah, because he wants to go tell Raven what Sabu had to say. So Sanjay says there'll be no Raven versus Sabu match and that Raven knows about the promise. Raven slaps Sanjay and they brawl. Raven hits a low blow, attacks Dutt with weapons. Raven DDTs Dutt and says this was on Sabu's hands. Said promises they're made to be broken as Sabu checked on a beaten and battered Dutt.
Well, was Sabu just hanging out the front while Dutt was getting the shit kicked out of him?
Yeah, because of the promise. So he just has to stand there and watch as his pal gets killed.
It would have been even funnier if Raven was like seen on camera just watching. Sabu, of course, I mean. But like, he's like going, I wish I could help, but I can't.
Does the NXT conflicted face. June 16th, Hudson has Raven. Hudson then explains that Sabu and Raven have vowed to the Sheik that they'd never wrestle. I feel like they should have held that little mystery a little longer.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but
I think it's a decent question as to, well, why doesn't Sabu want to face Raven? And they do then explain that it's because they were both trained by the Sheik and they promised they would not wrestle each other.
Yeah, and because like it also that would make the time when Sabu finally does do it is like, you know, why is now okay? Like, what rules were? And then like you could have the big moment where it's revealed why Raven wasn't doing it, but now he has to overcome that promise because of what Raven's done.
Yeah, Raven was mad that Sanjay interjected himself into this, and it says again, promises are made to be broken. So then he faces Sanjay. Raven, as mentioned, he hurt his ribs in one of the dark matches before TV, and he was still injured here, and he wrestled Sanjay, and he aggravated that rib injury. So that's we're gonna get slow development on this story for a while.
It feels like Raven does kind of like disappear for a bit,
because I think this is Raven's last actual appearance. He does a promo where he's like, you were right all along, because the Dusty got through to him. We'll talk about that in one sec. And then they do the thing where he hangs him, but the Raven's not actually there then. So I think this is actually the last show Raven is on this month.
Yeah, but what did you think of the match?
Yeah, so Raven basically squashes Sanjay. He had it won with a powerbomb, pulled him up. Raven promises to keep beating Sanjay until Sabu comes out. Raven pulled Dutt up again, taped his hands together, tries to maul Dutt with a screwdriver.
My favorite like subtle thing that he did was he's like, I'm gonna keep torturing you, and he just like rubs his face into the mat, and I was like, that looked awful to take.
Dropped to hold him onto a chair. Raven pinned him, and Thomas then gave the fast count to save Sanjay because Raven kept pulling him up, so the referee kind of intervened via fast count.
That's a good touch, actually. I like that.
I would say you have ref stoppage powers, but I guess it's Raven's rules. This was a Raven's rules match, so maybe he was like, no ref stoppages.
There's no DQ. There's no stopping. Yeah, I like it though.
So Raven starts taping Dutt's legs. He wants Dutt to call out for Sabu, which Dutt eventually does. Sabu gets between Raven and Dutt. Raven slaps Sabu, tries to provoke him. Sabu doesn't rise to it.
Fucks up Sabu. He beats the shit out of him.
He really does lay in those shots, which again really does work for the angle they're going for, that he's really trying to get the rise out of Sabu here.
And this is Sabu, you know, this is the fucking wild man, and he's not biting.
Eventually, Dusty comes out after security intervenes, and then he chastises Raven for not respecting the Sheik and forgetting what Sabu did for him. Then Dusty invites Raven to take a shot, to fight him instead, and Raven walks away.
Raven being like, this has nothing to do with you. Get out.
I'm a little sad we never get a Raven and Dusty match, but that would rule.
Or even just more Raven Dusty back and forth.
Yeah. So we have Sabu drama.
I love Sabu drama. Let's go.
Sabu's return all along was to set up for him to team with Raven and then feud, even though the team never really got going, and plans for them to do a traditional split up kept changing. Raven pushed for it, thinking Sabu was the one wrestler he had never worked a singles match against, even though they were together in ECW as two of the company's biggest stars. Sabu, who had screwed up more than once in the past in TNA, had some office people arguing against using him. While his matches haven't been off the charts, he internally had zero problem during this run. Both he and Stephanie Bellers overslept their flights. Reoccurring trend here in TNA.
Stop booking early flights.
Sabu got in 4 hours late for television, as he also missed a second flight, and the company has been insistent guys don't miss their early morning flights.
Jeff, please, we need you to make it.
When he got there, he was a mess. Jerry Jarrett, who almost never yells at anybody, tore him up bad, and Sabu really respects Jarrett because he respects all the veterans. He was scheduled for a post-show dark match main event against Abyss, with the idea of giving the live crowd a special match. For one, the live crowd didn't really care once TV was over. Second, the match was, from several different sources, terrible. The funny thing is, according to wrestlers watching, it was Abyss and not Sabu who was in the wrong position and blew the spots. Others say it was Sabu though. But since Sabu was a mess and everyone could see that, he got the blame. There were people talking about not using him any longer, and Sabu was enraged after the show, saying he was frustrated how he was being used because he wanted to do more wrestling. He complained that his role in the pay-per-view, where he just stood there while holding a photo, was getting money he didn't earn because he didn't do a match. Which, that's the most honorable thing I've ever heard a pro wrestler say.
Also, I don't believe it for a second.
In the Abyss match the next night, the match ended with Raven doing a run-in on Sabu, and in climbing into the new six-sided ring, he thought he cracked a sternum. As it turns out, X-rays revealed a broken rib, although he's at this point expected to be out for 2 to 4 weeks.
Explains why this feud's kind of on ice a little bit.
By the time the night was over, Sabu was telling friends he wanted to quit, and several in the company thought he should be fired. Others were arguing against firing him, but said he shouldn't be used for a while. One person in the company who was close to him felt firing would throw him into a depression, and for his sake, giving him time off was the best thing for him. Others wanted to ignore what happened so as not to interrupt the plans. Fucking wrestling. And there was even a suggestion of keeping him around for the first match with Raven, which is now going to be a few weeks away, and hold off any other decision until then. At press time, it appeared they were going to keep using him so as not to change pre-existing plans.
The Jarrett's kind of running into the situation that I run into every time I try to book TNA 2004 to 2006, where Sabu continues to be a problem.
Now you understand why all those mods are train wrecks, where it's like everyone's unhappy, everybody's bickering. You look at this backstage locker room, it's like, oh yeah, it's actually true to life, isn't it?
It's like, yeah, can you get it together for my sake? I'm sure. I remember like this one time we were playing and you're trying to do this like Sabu, Rhino, Raven thing, and just every show they would all be fucking up, and you're like, come on, please.
Just want to have one good match, please. Come on, guys.
And then like I see like it's a hard thing because I mean I guess it's not like the biggest storyline on the show, so you could find a way to cool it off for a bit, but they have invested weeks into this now. But also like you should probably put people's health above all.
Yeah. Your little wrestling story doesn't matter, ultimately.
It's a hard balance. Especially with guys like, you know, a Sabu who's, like, insisting that he wants to be a part of the show. And, like, you have guys telling you that, like, if you did fire him, it wouldn't be beneficial to him anyway. So it's like, I mean, I don't envy the challenge of balancing people in that position, you know?
It is ultimately a no-win situation.
Which is, I guess, is the no fun part. Like, especially because now, you know, TNA is being presented as a major pro wrestling company. If it's just an indie, then you're just like, well, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter. We can just not book the guy for the next show. But this is a television pay-per-view product now, and with that, some expectations come along, and it becomes a more serious and more dependent business.
Yeah, it's not like this stuff never happens in WWE, but it is exceedingly rare that you have these kind of blow-ups, like the kind of Sasha and Naomi walking out thing. Is such an impactful news story because it just doesn't really happen there. People just like swallow their problems and get on with it.
Yeah, and then when it does happen, you know, they get villainized in the media.
They do the full hit job.
Park gets put on ice for a year and a half. Mustafa Ali is on the same way until they make him swallow his pride and get back to work, you know? It's a lot.
So later in the show, Hudson has Raven. Raven apologized to Sabu after Dusty's speech and says next week he's going to have a tribute to the Sheik. And Mike Tenay is like, I like that Mike Tenay is like, he's fucking lying. I don't believe him.
We go to this.
Yeah, before that, we do have the Naturals face Sabu and Sanjay on Impact. Naturals win with the Naturals.
It was a decent little match.
So yeah, franchise is backstage. He's looking at Raven's tribute to Sabu, which was a dummy hanging itself.
I hate to say that I did not trust TNA enough to not go and search his cause of death. Because I was like, okay, I need to see how bad a taste this is. He died of heart failure. So
it's only kind of in bad taste.
Yeah.
He'd only died the year before, too. It's not like he's been dead 20 years.
Yeah. I imagine that, to be honest, though, like, if I'm the Sheik, I'm probably the workerest worker in the world, and I'm like, yeah, man, do it.
Yeah, you turned my death into an angle.
100%. Which I guess that was always the Eddie defense in WWE.
Eddie would have loved this. So franchise is like, you don't want to look at this Sabu, but then Sabu walks in, looks at it, he's sad. Then Mickey Doyle randomly approaches and tries to talk Sabu into doing the right thing.
Which is to beat the fuck out of this guy and break your promise to your dead uncle. Yeah, Mickey Doyle, they built up throughout the whole show that he was here for personal reasons, not just to be a legend.
Yeah, because they had a bunch of seats there, because like Larry Z was there, Sarah the Ticket Taker was there, Harley Race was there, Dusty was meant to be there, but he was taken out by the guitar shot, and Mickey Doyle was there.
You're selling it.
Dusty's a pro.
Which of these names?
Even though Dusty did walk out of the main event.
I also do love a little Harley appearance. I'm always down for a Harley Race appearance.
Yeah, he never does much in Impact, but
he's also just a cool dude, isn't he?
Corsica Joe was the last person there.
Who I definitely know.
He's been on the show before.
Yeah, but who I definitely know.
As this guy who shows up occasionally in TNA. We did Raven's injured, so he's hurt his ribs. Apparently he had severe cases of pneumonia too. He's having a rough time, Raven.
Yeah, I can relate. Well, we get to end it on a real strength here.
So yeah, Sabu and Sanjay defeat Team Canada. Nice little match. That's it. Raven, his big feud with Sabu culminated on August 4th as they finally faced off in a pretty good match. You loved this match. You gave it 3.5 stars.
Yeah, I loved it.
On the TNA scale, that's a 5-star match.
I'm gonna be real with you right now. I blacked out. You were talking, and I like zoned out completely, and then you came back with, "Oh, and you love that match," and I was like, "Fuck, I have no clue what match he's talking about."
I pivoted to Raven and Sabu.
Okay. Yeah, it was a good match. Raven and Sabu were fucking crazy, and they beat each other up with weapons, and I liked both times that Raven did that. He did that against Sabu. They did the crazy DDT through the table. They did the fucking, yeah. And then the boom, they backed it up and they did the Sanjay match in the second one, which I think there's probably a story behind that, why that happened. But I was into it. I like the Raven stuff. The Raven stuff's fun because it's Plunder, and at least Plunder isn't overused now.
And yeah, it's not Plunder and everyone bleeding on every show.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Raven DDT'd Sabu through the table, picked up the win in their first ever contest. It was meant to be a DDT off the top ropes, but they then just fell off the top, and the DDT through the table looked good. But when you would like tease the DDT off the ropes through the table, and then have to do a regular DDT through a table, it's like, oh, all right. So they were meant to come back the next week with a Hangman's Horror match, or sorry, the 2 weeks later. It was meant to be the rematch, but well, Sabu wasn't there. And
that doesn't sound like him.
He appeared to actually be injured, but there was also a lot of doubt as to whether he was actually injured because it's Sabu. Mm-hmm. And like there was a lot of talk that like Sabu was meant to go over in this match. Sanjay ultimately took the place of Sabu and went over. So like it wasn't the case that he was refusing to do a job. So he probably was hurt, or like his real life demons got the better of him in some way or another.
Yeah, I don't see a reason for him to be like, I don't want to do this match and I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
I liked the Sanjay Dutt Raven match.
Yeah,
too.
After he showed up to do the job in the first match as well.
Yeah.
Sabu was meant to face Sanjay in this Hangman's Horror match on August 18th. Sabu wasn't there. Sanjay stepped in. Yeah, they had a fun match where like Raven beat the shit out of Sanjay, but then Sanjay fired up. He threw a fireball at Raven and hung him and won.
Yeah, that was cool. All I can think about whenever I see this Hangman's Horrors match is I just want someone to tie every collar around them.
Yeah, because the gimmick, in case you've never seen one, is that there on each of the 6 sides there is a strap and a collar that you want to tie the collar around the neck of somebody, throw them over the ropes, and hang them to win the match. That's the Hangman Horrors match. But yeah, because Sanjay tried to tie 2 of them at one stage, but one of them fell off.
But the whole time I'm just thinking like how funny it would be if Raven just had them all tied on and was just stuck in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, it's tied to the ropes from 6 angles, and Sanjay was just whipping his ass.
Yeah, I liked that the little spot. It took a while to get going, but I liked the spot where Raven shortened the chain to make it like even worse when he threw him over.
There were some mysterious figures in the crowd watching on. That was meant to be James Mitchell and Slash, but with Sabu leaving, or like Sabu is out now for the best part of a year. That's the story's on the back burner. I think they were meant to reunite Raven and Mitchell as a new church.
The newest church.
With them together as opposed to being enemies.
That would be fun. They did have the best feud of the year, so...
Sabu is once again on the bubble because of out-of-ring antics. More than one TNA official questioned whether the back injury Sabu had that he used as the excuse for getting out of this match was real, but then he missed a show in Puerto Rico after this time and was like, okay, it's probably real. There was talk that this might be the end of Sabu, but he has a good relationship with Jerry Jarrett, and they don't want to ruffle feathers at Raven, but this does turn out to be the end of Sabu for a while.
Aww.
And it's a shame, like, this feud was heating up, they were doing good stuff, they were finally getting to actually the matches. At least they got one. It would have been a shame if, like, they did the entire build and then couldn't even get one match out of it. At least they got one match out of it, which was the first ever Raven-Sabu match. But... yeah, it's a shame they couldn't do their full program.
I just think there's been like some of the best and most consistent stuff on the show.
Which leads to the final story of the month. The build to Monsters Ball.
Woo.
So, Hardy Monty involved Abyss and Raven interfering, which pivoted off until later in that show. Brian Gamble was making his entrance when Raven hit him with a chair. It was meant to be Abyss against Gamble. Raven complains about not being champ. He calls out Jarrett. Was about to hit his catchphrase when Monty attacked him. Abyss came out too. And then the defining part of their feud, they brawled.
Yeah, but to be fair, all these brawls ruled, including the explosion brawl.
Yeah, because it's just 3 guys who are big guys who want to fight, and that's cool.
I guess the backup here would have been if Monty was going to be in the main event, it would have just been Raven Abyss. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I like all these 3 being here. I love the Monsters Ball rules.
Yeah, so they introduced the Monsters Ball match. It will be Abyss against Raven against Monty. Monty does a promo this month where he seems to suggest Monsters Ball after it's already been announced.
He wants credit.
Yeah, so there's like a video package that announces Monsters Ball, and then Monty's like, I'm introducing this Monsters Ball idea.
Yeah. Hey man, if you can get away with it, do it.
The Monsters Ball rules, which they will be locked in a dark room without food or water for 24 hours and then unleashed upon each other, rabid, to tear each other apart.
Man, Raven looked awesome in those promos.
Oh, yeah, and the ones building up or the ones in the room?
Both. The ones where he was cutting promos in front of, like, I don't know, some haunted house extra room looked awesome. And then the ones that looked like a paranormal activity scene looked fucking fantastic.
Yeah, they wandered around Universal until they thought they found a Raven-esque room for them to film in.
Yeah, good stuff. I really like all the Raven stuff this month. Raven's great. He really is great.
He is consistently one of the best things going on these shows.
Can't wait for him to win the title.
Impact, October 22nd, Monty beat Eric Stevens, yes, that Eric Stevens, in a squash match.
I loved it. Crushed him. Hit it twice. Hit the bounce twice. Awesome.
I did love when he hit the pounce and pulled him up for the 2 count. The sound guy was thrown off. He played Monty's theme for a second. It's like,
Which actually kind of adds to it.
Yeah, because even the sound guy was thrown off. Monty hit another pounce for the win. Monty called out Raven. Did what I believe was meant to be an impression of a raven. Where he's like, "Arr!" I think he was doing a raven.
You should have rhymed the cause and done a raven doing raven.
Raven does go back to his rhyming promos this month.
He hit a real awful one on like the second last show. Where he's like, Mom spaghetti, knees weak, arms are heavy. Like,
the man is not a poet.
But he doesn't know it.
Don't you rhyme. Do not rhyme the rest of this show.
There was a bee, you see.
No. Lights went out. Raven appears with a straitjacket. Monty pounced Raven. Lights went out again. Abyss had Monty in the shock treatment when they came back up. Monty fought off, but eventually got dropped with it anyway after being distracted by Raven, and security separated them.
Yes, sir.
Monty, squash again.
I like how he gets the most of them.
He faces Eric Stevens and Mark Stevens. No relation because Eric is spelt with a V and Mark is spelt with a PH.
Are you a PH guy or a V guy?
I'm more of a V guy. I don't respect the PHs.
Wow. Disrespect to my uncle.
I hate acidity. Raven did the rhyming poem before this about Monsters Ball, and there was the video package before, and it also announced Monsters Ball was in a card rundown video.
Monsters Ball takes a toll.
So Monty comes out with a bag, he pounces and kills Stevens and pins both of them at the same time, stacked on top of each other.
Pretty great.
He cuts a promo on Monsters Ball, there's a straitjacket and an Abyss mask in the bag. He puts them on Stevens and kills them again. He then calls out Brian Cox of the Best Damn Sports Show.
The crowd audibly went, ooh.
Yeah, 2 big NFL stars facing off.
And then we hear a very mysterious voice.
Yeah, a definitely not unrecognizable voice at all. No one could possibly work out who this voice was, hyping up Abyss, saying Abyss will destroy Monty Brown, and he'll destroy Raven at the pay-per-view. Turns out it's obviously James Mitchell. And, I was thinking, James Mitchell hasn't been on this show for over a year now. Well, not quite over a year. Maybe under a year. What, 7 or 8 months? Was it February or March we last saw James Mitchell?
Oh, we saw him under a hood that was never revealed.
Yeah,
so.
And there was some New Church stuff in, February-ish. So, oh yeah, when The Gathering left. So it would have been February, March-ish, because he managed The Gathering for 2 weeks after in the Raven feud. So we haven't seen him since then. So, benefit of the doubt, do people forget what James Mitchell sounds like?
To be fair, I think, some people would have known, but I give out there was a lot of people who didn't put it together straight away.
I feel like the announcer should have, though.
Yeah. Well, they're playing dumb.
No, it's stupid that Mike Tenay and Don West aren't immediately that's James Mitchell.
Maybe they didn't recognize.
They could have just distorted the voice as well, and this isn't a problem.
Maybe leave him alone.
No, fix your things. Go home show. Abyss has himself a little black bag, Liam.
What could be in that bag?
Abyss faces Seth Delay, and he beats him with no delay after a black hole slam.
He beat him today, not yesterday.
There was no delay. He beat him
for Seth Delay.
Anyway. A joke I liked so much I wrote it into the show notes. Abyss pinned Delay again, just cause Monty interrupts. Abyss pours out the thumbtacks and Monty looks rattled.
He's like, ooh, pointy. Little does he know, it'll obviously be Abyss going through him.
Yes, we establish a long-standing tradition of Abyss being the one that falls in thumbtacks at Victory Road. Raven does his promo then. He's in that Universal Studios backdrop, which looks very Raven. Talks about violence.
It's awesome.
Decency is dead, whatnot, and that the 24 hours it's locked in a room will either bring him clarity or drive him insane. And really, it's the same difference.
I love this promo because at the end, he, has a little twitch where he looks, concerned. And it's, a little bit of vulnerability that you don't see from Raven's character very often.
It's like he will either mentally break or have a mental breakthrough. And either way, violence will come.
He doesn't know which one's the good one.
Yeah. And that does bring us to Victory Road, November 7th. The Monsters Ball. We get promos from Monty and Raven locked in the room. We get a Abyss locked in the room making noises too.
Yeah, the Raven one looks so cool. Maybe we can get like a photo of it or some shit. But I think this might be my favorite match on the show. I just thought this was awesome. They just beat the piss out of each other. And the finish is insane.
Yeah, so we do have the masked mystery man watching on from the rafters. Who could it possibly be?
Me.
Abyss takes his thumbtacks out. He pours them. Then he goes to superplex Monty off the top. But then Raven powerbombs him in the tacks.
Yeah. And hell of a tack bump too. All in his arm.
Yeah, so he takes like the full back bump, lands on his knees. All of the tacks go on his arm. And you can see immediately blood start pouring out from the tack wounds. It looks gnarly.
Dixie is disgusted.
Yeah, they cut to the reaction shot there of Dixie and she's losing her mind. She's like, what have they done to my Abyss? As you mentioned, the finish. So they have a table set up in the corner and a table on the outside. Raven knocks Abyss off the apron through the table on the floor. And then literally they just cut back perfectly. Just so that you see Monty come out of nowhere to pounce Raven through the table in the corner, pin him. Monty wins Monsters Ball.
Yeah, it feels good because like I get why people like already wanted him in the main event spot at this point, but I think this was a very necessary win for Monty too.
And once again, he's here on pay-per-view in a gimmick match against two guys who have vastly more experience than he does, and at absolutely no point does he look out of place.
No way. And he gets a pin on Raven.
Yeah, he pins Raven, and it's one of the best matches on the show.
Yeah, if not the best.
Crowder going nuts. Crowder into Monty. Crowder into Raven. Crowder into Abyss. Crowder still into Thumbtacks because this is the first time we see Thumbtacks in TNA in general. First time somebody actually takes a Thumbtack bump. Yeah, great match. Just perfect thing. Like, because this could have been just, let's just throw these three guys we have nothing to do with on the show. But it's like, no, we gave them a match. We invented Monsters Ball, which would to this day be one of the classic TNA stipulation matches. And we gave them like a meaningful story going into it where these are the guys who are the top contenders looking for the next shot. And they want to tear each other apart because they're three big monster guys, hardcore guys who are willing to do anything and everything to win. And the match ruled. Great job. Top stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
And that is October, November, all the way up to Victory Road 2004.
We are riding the Victory Road.
Yeah, a good month. Nothing blow away, but I thought a very enjoyable month to watch.
And also, if you haven't seen that first show, the first pay-per-view, the first real pay-per-view, I mean, go check it out.
Yeah, it's perfect to perhaps go to tnachat.com and do a watch-along of it, huh?
Wow. That'll make the boring parts fun.
If you would like to hear more from us, we will be back in a week with our next episode of Review It For Her.
There'll be a Rain Takers at some point.
Where we're talking WSX. Our next Rain Takers should be on the 11th. We'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll review the 8-hour Big Egg Tokyo Dome show in honor of the Stardom crossover show.
Well, no, we're talking about Power Struggle 2012, but with a Yujiro Takahashi main event.
Yes, we're just coming off a big Yujiro Takahashi singles match.
We might ask for a day or two flexibility on the date that goes up, but we'll see.
Well, we won't ask. We'll just do it. Fuck you.
That's true. We might double header the recording of that with Wrestling Society X, so it might be a few days late. But it will be there in like a week, maybe.
Eventually, you'll get it, all right?
You'll get your review of Power Struggle on Patreon as well as Wrestling Society X.
So many goddamn shows that we do. There's so much value.
Plus our watch-along of Victory Road 2004. They're in full at tnhi.com, patreon.com/kiddingme. Also, worth noting, we should bring it up more often, we have the monthly billing thing, so you don't have to worry about when you sign up.
Anniversary billing.
Whatever it's called. When you sign...
Well, monthly billing implies that it was the old version.
Whatever, it's the good one. The one that's good for you. Whenever you sign up is when you'll get 30 days, as opposed to the annoying thing where it only rolls over at the start of the month. So you do not have to worry about when you sign up at tnhi.com or patreon.com/kiddingme.
Maybe we splice that section into the start where we mention Patreon, because this is the end of a 3-hour podcast.
Now, I have faith that our listeners will have listened all the way through.
You know what? We do get a lot of people talking about the bits where we're like, no one's listening anymore.
It's actually funny. You can see the stats, and people only drop off for the plugs at the very end, which maybe we should do a little earlier then, but...
Yeah, fuck you guys. Anyone who's listening, you're cool, best friends.
Patreon.com/TNA.com. Last but not least is Raven against Dustin Rhodes.
A pretty solid mid-card feud. We call that the Raven effect.
That's where the move name comes from.
Yeah. So, Raven. This is ridiculous.
Why?
He just keeps losing.
He won on the pay-per-view.
I know, but on the build-up, he just loses.
He did lose to... Who did he lose to? Eric Watts. That's who he lost to.
He just keeps losing. He's losing upwards to the title. It's a very weird build.
It's strange. It is strange. Because he beats Dustin Rhodes here, but he may not beat Dustin Rhodes next month. We'll get to that. On the first Impact, January 21st, he faces Cassidy Riley. Raven transitions from an ankle lock to the Raven effect, pins Riley after pulling him up twice. Then he broke Riley's fingers.
Yeah, that was cool.
I did appreciate that he just broke his fingers.
Raven, I do really love Raven's presentation besides the losing right now. If he was just a guy winning everything, that'd be a better build. But his look, his viciousness, it's all coming together here.
We also had a tremendous Raven moment on Hard to Kill, where
I saw that.
Where Steve Macklin and Rich Swann are brawling outside center stage on the streets of Atlanta, and then Raven just chimes in. It's like, I hope they get hit by a car.
And he says it with a glee in his voice.
He sure did.
He's like, I hope they want to get hit by a car.
If you look at the version on Instagram, I did deliberately clip it so that it literally ends on Raven saying, I hope he gets hit by a car. It's a great punchline to that video.
And a hell of a spot too.
Yeah, the cutter onto concrete. It's like all those videos of people wrestling in the real world. They all do RKOs.
Oh my gosh. It is maybe the most popular move of all time.
So yeah, Raven broke his fingers and grabbed a chair before Dustin Rhodes made the save. Yeah. It's a little late, buddy. His fingers are already broken.
They seem to be trying to do something with Cassidy Riley.
Yeah, the idea is that he's going to be the apprentice of Dustin Rhodes. Or will he?
Oh my gosh.
From PW Torch, there is a lot of second guessing of Dusty pushing Dustin, who friends still say hasn't recovered emotionally from being released by WWE. Dustin isn't impressing anyone with his energy level or enthusiasm inside or outside of the ring, but Dusty is pushing him for obvious family reasons.
I can't speak to how he is outside the ring, but I feel like he's delivered inside the ring.
He's not having great matches, but his matches are fine. They're not offensive.
But also, most people aren't having great matches.
That's true. Every TV match is 2 stars, so I can't give out to him.
I think he's just a fine mid-card addition.
And yeah, all of his pay-per-view matches are he works a body part, very traditional pro wrestling match.
That's not bad.
So next episode of Impact, the Naturals defeat Dustin Rhodes and Cassidy Riley.
Hey, well, at least the Naturals got to win.
It was meant to be Watts, but Watts has a separated shoulder from the pay-per-view. We did do the eulogy for Watts slightly too early. This is his last appearance rather than the pay-per-view. But
hey, yeah, remember when...
We did have one more little treat of Eric Watts walking out with his shoulder in a sling.
Hey, I remember when Eric Watts walked out with his shoulder in a sling.
Whoa, that was on this show.
Yep, they're good. We're all updated.
I did appreciate how Watts wasn't wrestling because of a separated shoulder, but Riley was wrestling, even though Raven broke his fingers last week.
Oh, the broken fingers aren't as bad.
You can just tape them up, you're fine.
You can fight someone with broken fingers. I'd hesitate about doing it with the dislocated shoulder.
So the finish of the opening tag on this match was Abyss shows up, brawls away with Jeff Hardy, Kid Cash and Lance Hoyt pin Chris Sabin. The finish of this tag later in the show was Raven shows up, brawls with Dustin Rhodes, and then that allows the Naturals to pin Cassidy Riley with the Natural Disaster. Exact same finish and 2 tag matches on the same show. Good job, guys.
Fun. Good. Oh, this is your man. This is your Dusty Rhodes booking here.
I blame the agents. Whoever agented the matches did not communicate with the different finishes. I'm sure Dusty was just like, Naturals go over, and Raven shows up. And then whoever laid out that finish, shame on them. It's probably like Shane Douglas's fault.
Oh, classic Jeff Jarrett defender.
February 4th, Cassidy Riley is sitting down with Dustin. And Raven comes back.
I like this segment. It's dumb.
Yeah, Raven comes out. It's like, I'm so sorry about what happened to your fingers. It was an accident.
It was an accident as I deliberately stood above you and broke them.
So yeah, they'll face it against all odds. It will be Raven versus Dustin Rhodes. And they were in the main event 6-man tag. It was AEW and Dustin Rhodes defeating Kid Cash, Lance Hoyt, and Raven after Dustin pinned Raven with his running bulldog.
Yeah.
Which ultimately tipped off the finish because on the pay-per-view, Raven beat Dustin.
Yeah.
Leg work match, Liam.
I like Raven's ankle lock.
Do you?
Yeah.
It's better than the other thing he was doing.
What other thing was he doing?
He was doing like another submission for a bit there.
Was he?
Yeah.
What?
Wasn't he doing like an arm thing?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but I thought he was doing an arm thing, and I prefer the ankle lock. So there's something like enjoyable about watching someone who isn't like a super like athlete looking guy like Kurt Angle doing an ankle lock, or like a Ken Shamrock. Like just this weird creep is just like grabbing onto an ankle, and he does the standing version, which is way better than the sitting down into it version.
So this match, Raven targets the leg with an ankle lock. Dustin goes for an ankle lock of his own. Raven rolls through. Dustin collides with the turnbuckles, and then Raven grabs a pin with his feet in the ropes. Post-match, Raven locks Rhodes in a straitjacket. The man has a great grasp of how to tie a straitjacket.
Yeah, he's done it before. He's done it. He's gotten out of them before. This is a man who knows how a straitjacket works.
Like, there are a lot less complicated spots involving a lot less complicated props in pro wrestling that go much worse than Raven tying Rhodes in a straitjacket. Because not only does he tie him in a straitjacket, he also then unties it to tie him to the turnbuckle so that he can whip him. And all of that absolutely seamless. This man knows how to handle a straitjacket.
It's right into that how you will.
It's actually remarkable how well he handles a straitjacket. Security eventually ran him off after he tried to whip him. Perhaps building to a strap match next month. You never know. Raven and Jeff Hardy.
The actual match?
The build first. The other two segments they had.
What were the other two segments they had?
Well, there was the one that instigated it, which is also, once again, one of my favorite segments.
Oh, yeah, like Raven's like, hey man, you're real popular with Hot Topic.
Yeah.
And Raven's like, I'm real popular with Hot Topic and people who drink Jack Daniels.
Yeah, they're like the two different spectrum of emo dudes.
Yeah. And I think we could be the greatest metalcore band of all time if we unite. And then Jeff's like, no.
But politely, he's like, no man, I'm good.
And then Raven's like, fuck you!
I never wanted a team anyway!
I don't want a team anyway!
And that's the entire basis of their feud.
Yeah, it's pretty great, to be honest. That's all you need.
We've literally covered all the other segments. There's the segment where Raven attacks Cassidy Riley and Abyss and Styles makes the save. There's the segment where Raven hits him with a trash can. Then there's that main event tag. That's everything in this feud.
Garrett, do you remember when on one of these, this is a rare different you remember, how on one of these shows there was 2 matches?
Yeah.
Like, that's where we're at the moment. Shit's crazy.
Well, one of them was a 21-minute main event, to be fair.
Yeah, and then there was one that had like 3 matches as well. There was 2 4-match cards.
I do feel like this month they are messing with format a little more.
Yeah, I think they're trying to find out some different things.
They're trying to work out, like, what does Impact look like if we have one long main event, a couple of features, and a squash? What does Impact look like if we have, like, 3 decent length matches, 2 of which are, like, star-driven, because the other match on that 3-match card is AMW
What does
The Naturals.
Impact look like if we have a full pay-per-view 8-match card?
All of which are squashes. So yeah, I do think they're kind of tweaking and experimenting with the format of Impact a little bit to see what it looks like. Especially because, as I said, they're going into TV now. They're shooting 3 at a time, which I think hurts the TV a little bit because, like, not like the crowd were super energetic for TV as it is, but because that crowd has to sit through 3 Impact tapings now, full of like 75 squash matches, they just kind of lose interest. So I think even some of the good matches lose a bit of energy. But I also think part of that is like they're throwing together shows and throwing together stuff, and maybe they probably shoot a little too they're not used to like shooting 3 shows in a row, so they're not used to formatting 3 shows in a row, so sometimes they're probably light and heavy on how much they've shot versus how much they need, so they're probably like fumbling their way through it.
Yeah, it was an interesting month for seeing how TV panned out.
So yeah, those are all the builds. We then takes us to Jeff Hardy versus Raven in a tables match. It's never really announced as a tables match. I'm sure it says it on the scroll at one stage, but there's never like a moment where like, this is going to be a tables match.
This match rocks.
This is like the dumbest, stupidest match, but in a good way.
Yeah, this is what you want from Jeff Hardy and Raven. Like, you're not going in there expecting work rate classic from this. You want them to hit each other with shit. You want them to fall through tables, which they do a lot. You want to look at spots and be like, ooh, how's that going to work? And that happens.
Yeah.
So it's just a complete car crash in a cage with a bunch of tables. And I will give them credit here. This is one of the matches and one of the reasons I thought, despite the fact that I have a visceral
negativity towards an old cage pay-per-view, the way they did it, I think it worked out fine because these matches did feel different, and that's the major component of it. And this is one of those matches that just felt different because they didn't really focus much on the cage beyond using it as a platform of which to fall off.
Which is the ideal for cage matches, frankly.
Yeah. And plus, that final bump in that match looks like so much fun.
Yeah, so they solve, I think, the fatal flaw with tables matches in that there's one table bump, and there's a bunch of matches that have lots of table bumps, and they're good. And they're like, all right, so we have to work multiple table bumps into this in order for it to be interesting. So like within the first 2 minutes, Raven charges through a table and misses and crashes and burns.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's how you do a table match.
Yeah, Hardy goes for a swanton off the cage, also crashes and burns through a table.
Yeah, you know what I've always wanted?
What?
And you can pitch this. All right, Iron Man table match.
Ooh, like 60?
You don't have to go 60, but like, say it's like 20 minutes, right? 20-minute Iron Man match. And it's just whoever goes through the table the more times.
Yeah, I think that would work.
Yeah, it'd be an awesome match, right? And especially if you did it with like a team, like a tag team table Iron Man match. Because then like people can have breaks and don't have to go through 17 themselves. They can split it up. But I just think it'd be fun. And like to see how high that number could get to.
Yeah, I think I might top it out at 15 minutes. Because I think 20 might feel a little long.
Especially when it's essentially the same spot over and over again.
But yeah, I think that idea rocks. People should do it.
Alright, write it down.
We all know that this podcast is incredibly influential.
You can call it Tag Table Turmoil.
There you go. T4. The T4 match and the pain bow. They're free. People can take them.
Whoa, free.
I'm giving away Liam's intellectual property.
But yes, I think that's a fantastic idea.
It is. So they opened the cage door and Raven crotched Hardy on the cage door, but then Hardy immediately swung the door into Raven's head.
Not as good as the other time.
And then hit the stupidest thing in this match. So he closes the cage door again and he's on top of the cage. And he just kind of falls onto Raven, who gets his foot up. But Jeff lands like feet first after falling off a cage or like landing off a cage.
Yeah, he does a double stomp to the ring.
I don't know how he doesn't just break his knees.
If I was him, my shin would have shot up my leg and pierced through my patella and just like gone all the way through.
And like as he said, he's not even doing a double stomp. He's doing like he's just a classic.
He's just falling onto his ankles and knees.
It's like a classic pro wrestling flying nothing, and Raven gets his foot up, but he does it off a fucking cage.
It's insane.
So as you mentioned, the finish. They stack 4 tables, the classic 2-on-2. Andrew Thomas actually helps him, which is very nice of him.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I'm not going to get mad about that.
Referee assists with construction.
Well, it comes back to bite Raven in the ass anyway.
Yeah, so they climb up onto the ropes, and then Hardy knocks Raven onto these 2 stacked tables in a way that would terrify me that those tables would hold. Because he very, like, softly, gingerly lies on them just in case they tumble.
Yeah. But, like, wouldn't you just love to do this Jeff Hardy dive?
Yeah, so the finish is Hardy climbs the top of the cage while Raven is lying on top of the 2x2 stack.
Is it 2x2 or is it 6?
It's 2x2.
No, it's 2x2, you're right.
It's 2 high, 2 wide.
Yeah. I thought it might have been 2 high, 3 wide. Which again just sounds even more fun.
It does. Hardy just ass first cannonballs off the top, plummeting Raven through a few of the tables. 2 of them didn't break, but it looked great. It just looked like so much fun. It's just like, wee!
Yeah, it just went boom, 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 boom. Like going down a bumpy slide.
Yeah, it wasn't even the case where like, oh, that looked like it sucked for Raven. It looked like it was probably okay for him too.
Yeah. Like Jeff broke the tables, he just slid.
It is as well as that bump could have gone. I think it went.
If I was Raven, I would have started chuckling on the way down.
Oh, it was fun. Listen to these tables break beneath me.
Yeah, and what a satisfying sound too.
Yeah, and Hardy does win the steel cage tables match.
I went 4 on this. I thought it rocked.
What did I go? I went 3.5?
3.5.
Good match, fun match, silly match, but the right kind of silly
2
match.
4-star matches on this card for me.
Wow, and you were like, this show isn't even good.
By TNA standards, this is show of the year.
Well, it's probably not. They've had some good shows.
Not this year, but generally.
It would have run away with it in 2004.
Oh, it wouldn't have even been a question.
That brings us over to, once again, the highlight of the month. even though one half of the match didn't show up for the pay-per-view. It's Raven and Jeff Hardy.
Raven's the fucking man. What can we say more that we haven't said about Raven at this point? He basically carries every good thing in this company that, like, isn't the tag division.
Or the X division.
At times.
So there's only 1 point to build to this match. It's announced very early that they'll face each other in a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. I think that's announced basically before the first Impact.
And to be fair, like, this has had a month before it as well.
Actually, no, there's 2. There's one on the Go Home show too. So on the May 6th Impact, Raven cuts a promo. And it's like a full 4-minute promo where he's really pitching this match on Jeff Hardy.
It's some classic Raven.
Oh, he's hitting all the beats here. He's like quoting Napoleon and everything.
Which gives you the opportunity, of course, to do your Raven impression, which is a highlight.
Yeah, so this is Napoleon through Raven. Glory is fleeting.
Through Garrett Kidney.
But obscurity is forever.
Quote the Raven, nevermore.
Yeah, he has some real nasty scars on his forehead here, falling from the lockdown match.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Like, yeah, he normally does, but like, there's like deep open wounds borderline. So this is the classic Raven promo. He talks about how he wanted to like Jeff Hardy because he's like, you're reckless and strange. I appreciate that.
I like Keith Richards.
But you're popular, and I'm a weirdo.
I'm a freak. I'm a little crazy. I'm a little Jokerified.
He talks about how he wants to care, but he can't. All the gods can't keep score of the suffering he's inflicted. Hardy is standing in the path of his immortality. He is going to terminate Hardy with extreme prejudice at Hard Justice.
Extreme prejudice.
Hell of a promo.
Yeah, Raven rules.
Super duper Raven promo, but the good kind of like super duper Raven promo, where he's like full of himself in a way that's entertaining instead of full of himself in a way that is long run-on sentences punctuated by poetry.
With Marvel references randomly.
So the May 13th Impact opened with a wrestling match that so deeply confused me.
Yeah, okay. So I just thought this was just a match. So I mean, like, there's the spot in the middle, which is great. But go ahead.
So it's Edith Skipper versus Christopher Daniels versus Eric Young versus Jeff Hardy, and a 4-way elimination match opens the show.
And when you see this on paper, you go, what? How? And why?
There are many questions you have.
Yeah.
So the match actually starts off pretty hot. They hit a bunch of moves. Hardy hits a poetry in motion off the chair to the floor. Daniels took a chair that hit like a dive with the chair in front of him on the floor as well. Raven comes out. He brawls to the back with Hardy to set up their pay-per-view match. And then the match becomes the strangest match I've ever seen in my life.
It's great.
So there's 7 minutes on the clock. And Daniels is standing in the middle of the ring, with Eric Young and Elix Skipper on the floor. And for the next 4 minutes of this wrestling match, through a commercial break, all that is happening, over and over again, is Elix Skipper gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Eric Young gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Elix Skipper gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Scott D'Amore gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Eric Young gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. This happens for 4 minutes!
Personally, I think it's a good bit.
It happens for 4 minutes!
Before they went out, they got told they have 4 more minutes to film.
And the real funny part is they completely fuck up the timing of the finish after all of that.
Yeah.
Like, after all that, like, Skipper just buckshots his way back into the ring.
Which, to be fair, is a good payoff to the keeping someone out the ring spot.
Maybe not for 4 minutes.
Come on.
Did it for so long.
Come on.
So there was 10 seconds left on the clock. Skipper hits the sudden death on Eric Young to eliminate him. Then Skipper rolls up Daniels. The bell rings because the time has run out. A good 5 seconds pass before the referee counts the pin on Daniels and Skipper is awarded the win. And then they come back after the break and they're like, this crowd was going so wild and out of control for this match that the referee didn't hear the bell, and thus the match has actually been declared a draw between Daniels and Skipper.
Sounds about right to me.
The finish was meant to be the roll-up. Skipper was meant to win, but they fucked up the timing because they spent 4 minutes of Daniels knocking guys off aprons.
I loved it. I was going nuts.
So you gave this match 2 stars. You can't say you loved it.
I mean, I loved that section of the match.
Yeah, if only it didn't have the action on either side of it. If it was just the dude knocking people off the apron.
If they had committed to the bit that hard, do you not think I would have been into it?
So yeah, Raven and Hardy brawl off. That's the Raven and Hardy part of this match. But which takes us to Hard Justice, in which Jeff Hardy no-shows.
Yeah, so...
on the Hard Justice pay-per-view on May 15th, Jeff Hardy no-showed. He cancelled and reserved a later flight from North Carolina to Orlando 6 or 8 times over the weekend, depending on the source, before finally not getting there at all. Actually, he arrived after the show ended, as he was at the hotel hanging out with fans at midnight with his body all painted up like he was ready for a match.
Oh, Jeffrey.
He was at the TV on the Tuesday before he got word that he was suspended. They finally put their foot down with Jeff Hardy. He's been late. He's been delaying people. He kind of missed TV tapings. But now it's like live pay-per-view match is like the absolutely positively thing you have to show up for. And I'm afraid Jeff, he's been suspended.
Yeah.
He was very apologetic, but he didn't do himself any favors when he said the reason he kept cancelling his flights was because he was doing errands. People apparently didn't expect the new booking team would take such a strong stand against the Star, and I think like that was like their first real test, right? It's like immediately Jeff Hardy no-shows, so you have to like again, statement of intent, just like the AJ video. It's their statement of intent. It's like you got to cop yourself on here. Everyone's got to cop themselves on here. This is a professional enterprise.
Which is a good change of pace.
The inmates are not running the asylum. We're not in the asylum anymore. That was like a year ago. Huh.
I'm living in the moment too.
So the big thing kind of hanging over this is like Matt Hardy's been released, and there's plenty of rumors that he is TNA bound because Jeff's suspension will end on the 11th of July. Matt's no compete will be up shortly after. He's agreed to do dates with Ring of Honor at this stage, and the big thing is he's going to come in. Like the Hardys don't really want to team together, but they're willing to do it on like their first date just because that's what people want. People want the Hardys, and then he'll do like single stuff with Matt and single stuff with Jeff. So like the big thing with Jeff, and like probably the reason people didn't think he'd be suspended was because everyone thought Matt would come in. Ultimately, Matt goes back to WWE and never goes to TNA at this stage, but I think that makes it like an even like a braver decision is not the right choice because he no-showed your pay-per-view. It's the decision you should make.
But it is still like a brave decision because of, wrestling is a star business.
There is more at stake than just Jeff because maybe in theory, because I think Matt's compete was up earlier. So maybe if Matt comes in, you at least get the Hardy Boys match before he goes back to WWE, which would be pretty valuable to them if they didn't suspend Jeff.
Yeah. Pretty cold-blooded of Matt not to show.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, there we go. So, the first real roadblock in the Jeff Hardy TNA relationship.
Yeah, because obviously it was boiling over. It's not like they didn't have warning signs, but here he is. He's finally no-showed a live show
and a pay-per-view, no less.
Yeah, like if he no-shows an Impact, you can get over it. You can just rewrite the show.
He's done it before.
Yeah, you can just rewrite the show. Everything's fine. Whereas you advertise him for a live pay-per-view match and he's not there. That's a problem.
Yeah, they're very lucky they had Waltman.
So earlier in the show, Terry Taylor had Raven. Taylor said Jeff Hardy's not here. Then Raven he's a pathetic, disgusting coward.
But you know what? If you're not there, you're allowed to get buried on TV.
It's true.
Samoa Joe, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall.
So he says that Waltman will be the replacement, and Raven said he's going to rip somebody's head off tonight and spit down their brain. That he follows up by saying that he's going to make sure Waltman leaves on a stretcher tonight, and then he's going to blow up the ambulance.
That's very mean.
Raven is on one right now.
He's loving life.
He's like peak Raven at this stage.
He knows he's about to win the title.
The funny thing about Waltman is that he also had like a pay dispute because they're, I think, 2 paydays behind on him, but they came to a settlement and he did the show.
And he delivered a fantastic match.
He did. So Waltman replaced Jeff Hardy to face Raven in a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match that just kind of rocked.
Yeah, they just went out there. They worked a mile a minute. It was brutal. Waltman was great in it. Raven was great in it. It's really is quite a fantastic little match.
Because Waltman hasn't really gotten a chance to show what he can do yet since he returned in February. God, it's been 3 months already. So he's only done like some TV squashes and he's done the Lethal Lockdown match. All of which he looked good in because he's Sean Waltman and he rocks. Because even when he's out there against Lex Lovett and Buck Quatermain, when he's just throwing his kicks, it's like, oh god, this guy rules.
And taking 50% of the match randomly.
Whereas here, where you can go out there and have like a real good match against Raven, a guy who has been one of the consistent best parts of this company for over 2 years now, in Raven's kind of match and a match that Waltman is willing to rise to Raven's kind of match, they just go out there, tear the house down. Waltman does just a bunch of wacky bumps.
Yeah, Waltman's flying all over the place, taking some stupid ass bumps, including getting thrown off the fucking stage into an abyss. Not into abyss, but into an abyss.
That's my favorite one because like they don't make a big production of it. They don't make like a big show of like teetering back and forth.
It doesn't feel like it was set up. It just feels like it's something that happened. Like they didn't like get in position and get this great shot of it. He just went flying.
Yeah, because they just walk up the ramp and then he just hurls him off the side of the stage through a table that happens to be set up there. And he kind of missed the table.
Kind of a table. Like, he kind of goes through it.
Yeah, but it's one of those, as you said, it's just like organically incorporated into the match where it's like he drags him up the ramp and then before you know it, a man is flying off a stage.
And Raven's bleeding. He's bleeding. This is some classic Raven bleeding.
Yeah, Waltman's also bleeding. Waltman hits a senton off the top through a table on the floor just to give people their Jeff Hardy fix.
Yeah, it feels like a little fuck you to Jeff there.
Raven handcuffed Waltman to the post and started beating with a cane.
Which is a really good spot.
It wasn't apparently enough, so we went going looking for a chair. And then Dusty showed up while Raven was looking for a chair. And with some referees, he had a master key apparently.
Blatant flagrance of the rules.
Of which there are none. And if there are no rules, that means Dusty can do whatever he wants. Boom!
A biased authority figure who cannot be trusted.
Listen, he's already been ousted. He doesn't care anymore.
Fair.
He's just doing whatever the hell he wants.
Again, I was proven right about Dusty Rhodes. This time, as a character, being completely untrustworthy as a man in charge.
Vince Russo would never.
Exactly!
My favorite part of that, though, because Raven was off searching for a chair, he didn't actually know that Waltman was, uncuffed, and then Waltman made a big comeback. And then the finish also rocked. So, the way Clockwork Orange is set up, there is a single cage fence set up on one side of the ring.
Mm-hmm. Very Cage of Death.
So they used it a couple of times in the match where it, grated each other off of it. And then the finish is Raven is standing in front of it in the ring. He backdrops Sean Waltman into the cage fence, which collapses to the floor, Waltman with it, and then Raven pins him for 3. Fantastic visual, awesome finish, tremendous match.
I also love that he didn't, just pick him up and DDT him and beat him. It was just off that collision.
Yeah. He just launched him into the cage collapsed. He just rolled down the, collapsed cage door, and Raven just pinned him.
It probably wasn't, a crazy intensive bump, but it looked like one.
I'd imagine there's that little bit of fear. I'm not sure how they set it up so that the cage would collapse, but I'd imagine there is that little bit of fear of, what if it doesn't?
Yeah, and then he just slides down.
And then it does, and everything goes fine. I think this is, one of the most underrated matches in TNA history. Nobody talks about this match, and nobody remembers this match, and it just fucking rocks.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just two guys just going out there doing wacky shit.
Probably doesn't help that it had just followed the AJ Abyss match, which is way more well known.
And it also doesn't help that it is an impromptu match because Jeff Hardy no-showed the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Probably better than the Jeff match would have been, to be fair.
Yeah, and these guys delivered. They gave people value for money. I don't think anybody would have been upset that they didn't see Jeff Hardy on the show.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry, we have more.
So that does bring us to broad topics for the month, and we shall start with, of course, the return of King of the Mountain.
Well, obviously, my pick for the King of the Mountain is the King of the Mountain himself, Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, how could he possibly lose the match that's his namesake?
Of course, it'd be ridiculous.
Could never, ever happen.
You can't lose it if he's not in it.
So the May 20th episode of Impact, the first of 2 episodes, a great episode of TV, by the way.
Maybe one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, we were talking about this in the watch-along, where I still think the first episode of Impact is the best. I think it felt like just the most high-energy big deal.
It also had, probably better matches on it.
Yeah, but this is, such a mile-a-minute, 45 minutes of television, where there are so many angles.
Yeah.
It is just stuffed to the gills with things happening in a way that this television show rarely is. Sometimes you go months without as much as happened in this episode of TV.
Yeah, for sure. It's just action, and it feels like a real show. Like a real pro wrestling show.
It's not just dudes coming out to squash people for no reason.
Yeah, no, everything felt like it had purpose and was building to something.
So Mike Tenay's in the ring, which usually is a harbinger of the King of the Mountain, Jeff Jarrett, but this time he introduces the new NWA World Champion, the phenomenal AJ Styles.
You are, I am.
AJ comes out, the crowd is very happy to see him. AJ thanks the fans all over the world.
That's me.
You're a fan all over the world?
Mm-hmm.
Were you happy to see him?
Yes.
Were you the one that motivated him to beat Jeff Jarrett?
I like to think so.
My favorite part of this promo is every time AJ Styles finishes a sentence or pauses halfway through a sentence, Mike today makes the most positive affirming faces.
Just an old-time face guy.
He makes so many faces in the AJ's promo was 90 seconds tops, and Mike Tenay makes maybe 130 faces.
A mile a minute, a face a minute.
AJ's thank you, the fans, and Mike Tenay will do a hell yeah face, or he'll be I'm NWA champion, I'm so happy, and he'll nod to the camera. He's so happy that, one, he's out here with somebody other than Jarrett, which I think pleases him first and foremost.
Big creepy smile on him.
And 2, he's trying to sell the idea that this is a good AJ promo, and it's nothing wrong with it, but it's not wow, what a promo from the new world champion. Tenay brings up that Abyss is now #1 contender. He won the 20-man gauntlet match at Hard Justice.
He's one of the contenders, sure.
Abyss keeps getting screwed over.
It's because he doesn't have a manager to manage his contracts.
Yeah, because he got his contract wet after he won the Full Metal Mayhem match. No, the other one. Final Assault? Whichever one he won. No, Full Metal Mayhem was where he became number one contender. And then he handed that wet contract to Tracy and Trinity and they lost it.
It just disintegrated.
So that's how he lost his first world title match. And this time he beats 20 men to earn one of 5 spots at King of the Mountain.
Yeah.
I guess technically he beats 19 men. He did not beat himself.
Like, he did beat himself.
Worked himself into a shoot. So yeah, Tenay's like, oh, he's number one contender. And AJ's like, I faced him at Lockdown. He's a true monster. Before, of course, Jeff Jarrett does interrupt. Jarrett's like, you only won because of Ortiz. And AJ's like, well, if you want a rematch, come and take this belt from me right now. Before Monty jumped him from behind. Tenay did the same thing Don West did when Dustin Rhodes was hit with a chair. He's like, AJ, look out! But he still got beat up by Monty.
A great alpha bomb.
He fought back. Monty dropped him with the alpha bomb. Abyss's music hit. He charged to the ring, and there was a big whose side is he on moment as he feigned to help AJ, but then dropped him with a black hole slam before Sean Waltman and AMW made the ultimate save.
It's a good segment.
Yeah, good angle, gets things moving toward a King of the Mountain where you already know, like, alright, you have Styles, you have Abyss, you have Jarrett, you have Monty. Those are your 4 guys. You know that from this segment, which is always a nice bit of TV.
Oh, and Jarrett, of course.
I said Jarrett.
Oh, sorry, I thought you skipped past.
Instinctively skips past Jarrett in my brain at all times, but I did say him that time.
Alright.
You're like, Jarrett's like, it's an agenda against me.
Yeah.
Jarrett missed a May 21st booking with Cyberspace Wrestling in Wayne, New Jersey, telling the promotion at the last minute he couldn't come or wrestle because he had a concussion from the Tito Ortiz punch. Tito Ortiz punched him so hard he did in fact actually get a concussion, it appears.
Sure.
Even though he did wrestle on the TVs afterwards, so that's not a good idea if you have a concussion, Jeff. Don't do that.
Yeah, sure. Definitely did.
Ortiz was told to make the punch look as real as possible, and they did hear that there was no real heat on Ortiz because they're like, make it look real! He made it look real, concussed them, but listen, you get what you tell him to do.
Yeah, so please retract your statement from last episode where you were like, normally MMA fighters either do really bad punches or punches that actually hurt people.
Yeah, but if you're gonna do one, you gotta make it look good.
I just want you to retract your praise so you're consistent.
Never. I will never retract my praise of Tito Ortiz. I will stand by him to the end.
You will stand by him and everything he has ever said.
Ever.
You will vote for him.
No, I legally cannot, actually.
I heard that you did.
Voter fraud?
Yeah, I heard that you committed voter fraud and voted 10,000 times for Tito Ortiz.
To be fair, if he is anything like every other Republican, he should be really mad at me about that.
Yeah.
They really do get worked up about, quote-unquote, voter fraud.
Which is definitely happening all the time.
We went backstage and Jarrett was shouting at Dusty, he demands his rematch, and Dusty's like, you got your rematch in a King of the Mountain match that will have you, Styles, champion, Monty, Abyss, and a wild card. And Jarrett is initially very upset at that announcement. He's like, how dare you put me in a match with 4 other men? And he's like, wait a minute, Abyss and Monty are on my side.
It's 3 versus 2.
So the numbers game is to my advantage.
And at Slammiversary, the numbers won't lie.
They will spell disaster for AJ Styles. Larry Zbyszko was at the announce table for no real reason. They never explained it. He's just sitting there with Mike and Don.
Because it's nice to see Larry.
Raven comes out and he's like, I'm going to be the wild card, right? Or I will turn TNA into a bloodbath.
I believe him.
Larry's like, well, wait and see. We haven't decided yet. And then Raven replied by being like, you're old, you're washed up, you only did that one match in Shea Stadium, you're such a loser. And then he slapped the headset off Larry, which Larry initially looked to get angry at, and then he sold.
Larry's great. Larry Zbyszko is so good.
Because we are moving into Larry Zbyszko as the full-time authority figure on the show for the bulk of a year.
This is a subtle nod to that. Some foreshadowing, some would say.
Yeah.
As Raven doesn't go to Dusty to get put in the match.
He goes to the real source of power,
Larry
Larry
Z.
Z.
The living legend.
So Larry eventually fires up, he throws some punches at Raven before Raven then makes a comeback and beats the living hell out of Larry Zbyszko.
Can we talk about these Larry Zbyszko DDT cells?
Go for it.
They're so great. He looks like he takes like spike bumps off of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look so good. We were kind of talking about how a few months ago it felt like a weird time to strap up Raven. But man, like, they have managed to heat him up again. Not to the level that he was the first time when he should have won the belt. But he definitely is like a hot act again.
Like, they've gone all in on him being like loose cannon crazy. Like his promo at the pay-per-view where at Hard Justice, where he was like, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, Sean Waltman, I'm going to kill and maim you, and then you'll be taken away in an ambulance, and I'm going to blow up the ambulance too. Like, he has gone all in on being like, I am a sadistic, horrible human being.
Domestic terrorist.
He is a terrorist, and he's finally snapped, and he's like, nothing will stop me from winning this belt now. I have been put to the side too many times. I'm just going to start killing people.
Jeff's like, just you wait, I'll try my best.
Yeah, so he dropped Lariat 2 Raven effects, then security came out, he disposed of them too, before Dusty came out and suspended Raven, and Raven did the classic, you can't fire me, I quit.
That's where Dusty was like, it's a good strategy.
Styles bursts into Dusty's office, he's mad about the King of the Mountain. Dusty's like, there's a look on Dusty's face that is like, I am so over all of this shit at this stage.
Yeah. He doesn't. The thing, and we talked about it a little bit. It's like I don't think he respects the company.
No,
he's just like, it's a paycheck. I don't think he ever really respected it. He probably enjoyed being in a position of power again, but I don't think he ever really thought it was going to be anything.
Yeah, and I just don't get the sense that he cared whether the show was good under his watch.
No, I think he just enjoyed being a showrunner.
Like, it's the classic thing after a bad Dynamite that you're nearly guaranteed a good Dynamite the next week.
Yeah, because Tony Khan really cares. Like, you can say a lot of things about Tony Khan, but the one thing that, like, is a undisputed fact is that he cares.
Yeah, if he feels like he's let his audience down in some way, he will try to make up for it.
Yeah, I love a bad Dynamite. Because I know next week my man's going to go crazy.
Whereas here, I don't think Dusty would think for a second whether the shows are even good or bad.
I don't think he thinks about the shows after they're done.
I don't think he thinks about the shows before they're done based on his booking, but...
Yeah.
Dusty's just like, I'm a little bit hyper myself, daddy. Before he books Styles and a partner of Styles choosing against Jarrett and Monty as the main event next.
They should have picked Abyss.
Which is actually, when you think about it, a thing this show basically never does. I think only like the Jarrett and Monty title match was a match that they made one week to do the next. Every week you just tune in and it's like a black box of whatever you're going to see. Like, they barely even announced matches during the show. They actually did it during the opener on this, where TNA is like, oh, on this show you're getting Team Canada versus AMW and Abyss versus Chris Sabin in the main event. And even then I was like, they never do that either. Like, they never just like, here are the matches coming up on this episode of TV. It's weird to be like, oh, the basics of wrestling television are here.
But to be fair, like, I feel like even in the modern zeitgeist, it took a long time for that to happen. Like, there was just a period where matches weren't announced, which is silly.
Part of it was like the Crazy Vince's stuff, where it's just like, matches weren't announced.
Crazy Vince.
Just because scripts weren't written.
We should also just mention at this point that Monty killed Sonny Siaki at the start.
Oh yeah, there was a squash match, I guess. There's no other reason to bring that up. Where Monty did beat him in less than a minute. A real squash for Monty.
Like, nothing. Like, Siaki got zero offense, basically.
Which, like, again, I wouldn't go so far as to say Siaki's a push act at the moment. But, like, he is in a new tag team with Apollo. They are just doing something. And that's, like, the classic sign of a new booker. It's like, they don't care about that. He's getting squashed in a minute.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a ton of upheaval from the new booker stuff. Like, Team Canada are getting a push, which I wonder why.
Yeah.
But I think they're also right to push Team Canada.
One of the good acts.
Yeah, and I think they were de-escalated too much. They were pushed too far down the card to become just complete comedy nerds. And we talked about how they can be that, but they're an important part of the show, and when they're not on the show is worse. So they are heated up a little bit this month. But there's not like a ton of other stuff that's like, whoa, they really threw the things they were doing out the window and started again. They more just like are starting to move in different directions. So the main event of this episode, a kind of surprising TV main event that I was into, Abyss versus Chris Sabin.
The one thing that I didn't love is that it was two guys that are in the middle of stories.
Yeah.
And, you know, you didn't really want either guy to lose.
But at the very least, they did beat Sabin by advancing his story.
Yeah. At the very least, they did a fuck finish.
But, like, they did a fuck finish that served the angle Sabin
yes.
was in.
Yeah, I get it.
On the tiers of fuck finishes.
But, I don't know. That's the one disappointing thing. Although, like, the match kind of rocks.
Yeah, because Abyss is always more generous than he ever should be.
Yeah.
So he does a bunch of stuff with Sabin where, like, the match starts with Sabin trying to arm drag Abyss, and Abyss just pulls him up in the air, and Sabin does, like, a flip bump. Which rules.
Yeah.
Sabin is, like, standing on the top, and he jumps over the post and ran as Abyss on the floor, which also rules.
Yeah, they do a bunch of crazy shit.
Yeah, worth noting Jarrett's on commentary for this match. And also, TNA informs us before this match that Raven threw a fit. He had destructive fit backstage after he was suspended and then quit. And we'll see footage of that next week.
See, I have to admit, I think this was good hype for the next show, because I was even like watching it, I was like, oh, I want to see what Raven did.
Yeah, who did he kill?
Yeah.
Did he actually blow up that ambulance?
There's one thing that Scott is doing better than other bookers, is that I feel like he is building up the next TV.
Yeah, it's not just shows that exist in a vacuum, which Impact is, as we said, it has always been, it's just 40 minutes that you tune in every week. And then, like, there's angles that continue week to week, but it's never like, oh, next week tune in for this big main event. Whereas, as you said here, they have the hook of Raven's footage next week, and they have the hook of a TV main event next week, Styles and a partner. They actually mention here that Waltman will be Styles' partner, so it's Styles and Waltman versus Monty and Jarrett for the main event next week. So there's hooks! There's actual reasons to come back!
Send hooks!
It's a real episodic TV show.
My god, they've finally grown up.
Yeah, so TNA and Jarrett are on commentary. Jarrett's like rubbing it in. And there's a shot at one stage where it shows them all at the table. And TNA is just, he's calling the match. He's calling whatever Sabin and Abyss are doing. But he, while doing it, giving Jeff Jarrett the most sensational side eye.
I do love that he doesn't trust him like at all.
No, he's keeping eyes on him at all times. Abyss grabs a chair from the buckle that he set up and Sabin dropkicks it into his head for a near fall. Sabin gets Abyss up for the cradle shock, has him on the shoulders, but then Michael Shane runs out, super kicks him, handing Abyss the win with the black hole slam.
They definitely did a lot to make Sabin feel like a big deal in this match, and I wonder why that happened as well, he says, sarcastically, knowing.
I wonder who trained Chris Sabin. There's no way of knowing.
Nah, it's impossible.
Again, we were mentioning at the watch along, it's a good thing Scott D'Amore trained some real good wrestlers.
Yeah, 'cause at least his like nepotism is for tremendous wrestlers who are some of the most influential wrestlers of all time.
Like, you go from Dusty's, which is Phi Delta Slam, and fucking Dustin Rhodes, the low point of his career, and Scott goes from to like Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, Team Canada. It's like, oh, good wrestlers!
Yeah. 3 tremendous acts at this point.
So earlier in the show, when Abyss laid out Styles with the Black Hole Slam, the inference was that Abyss was Team Jarrett. It was Jarrett, Monty, and Abyss as a stable. Whereas here, Jarrett offers Abyss the handshake. Abyss hesitates once again, accepts, and then pulls Jarrett into a Black Hole Slam as then he and Monty posed over Jarrett's beaten body.
Yeah, I think this was good and it was needed.
Yeah, again, it heats up Abyss, it puts him in a main event angle, it makes him not a lackey to Jarrett, and I think Abyss's worst problem, I think, is in his entire run so far, as he spends most of it as a lackey to somebody, whether it's Goldilocks, which was enjoyable, but probably not where Abyss should have been, or Kid Cash.
I do enjoy that this whole episode, Monty's been like side-eyeing Jarrett every time Jarrett's like, yeah, we're a team, we got this, and Monty's like, yeah.
Do we got this?
Like, when he goes and he turns to Abyss and Monty, he's like, it's 3 of us, the title's coming home. Monty's like, fuck you. And then here, like, Monty didn't exactly seem devastated that Abyss had taken out Jarrett.
Yeah, he doesn't even, like, really defend him. He stares Abyss down, but he's not, like, fighting for Jarrett's honor.
No.
And it got a real good reaction. Again, it's a moment where, like, Abyss could have been a real big babyface in this company. One thing I would say, and it's, I think, a consequence of a 2-week build, this is probably an angle that should have played out over a month.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, they're a destructive force, they're unstoppable, but it turns out Abyss is out for himself too. Whereas it did make for a good episode of TV that it played out over 45 minutes.
100%.
Felt very kinetic. So they showed the footage of what Raven did on the next episode of Impact, May 27. Raven, he tried to run over a cameraman with a car.
Hey man, I respect that.
Again, they're going like full unhinged. The man wants the NWA title and he will kill people. He will kill people to get it.
Yeah, he'll kill people who are like just doing their job, let alone people that are actively trying to stop him.
He does a promo then about how this is a conspiracy by Rhodes to keep him away from the belt, and he is going to make everybody suffer until he gets his shot at AJ. Later in the show, Terry Taylor has Monty Brown and Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett said he's not concerned with everything going against him lately after Abyss chose to Black Hole Slam him. And then he's like, at least Monty knows what the right side is. And that is again where Monty gave him just like, do I? And then Jarrett walked away to get ready for their main event, and Terry Taylor's like, how do you feel about this, Monty? And Monty's like, there is only one alpha male.
That's the definition.
Yeah, you can't have 2 alpha males, then they have to fight.
My god, the alpha male and the sigma male colliding.
Who would win that fight?
Come on.
AJ Styles and Sean Waltman faced Monty Brown and Jeff Jarrett in your TV main event of your Go Home show.
Nice to have a match of this star level on the show.
Yeah, again, real stars, the A-level stars interacting on TV, which is nice.
That being said, it was okay.
Yeah, it was a perfectly fine TV main, nothing special. It did make me think about how we never really got in a Styles and Monty match. Whereas, like, I think if Styles was actually going to be NWA champion long term, and they did the Styles Monty main event on a pay-per-view at this stage, they'd probably have a real good match.
Yeah.
Abyss watched on from the top of the ramp, so you had all your King of the Mountain people here, at least supposedly. They did not actually announce who the wild card would be until, I assume they did it in the build-up to the pay-per-view at some stage, because it never happened on TV, because even in this TV main event, after Styles announced that Waltman would be his partner, they were still playing up, it's like, who's the wild card?
Probably just announced it on the website.
I do wonder if they were hoping to get somebody better, because, like, Matt Hardy has been in negotiations with this company for a while, and it's like, it's been assumed that Matt Hardy will come in, and even it's reported after the pay-per-view that he will come in July. Obviously, he goes back to WWE. He never comes in until 2011. But I wonder if they were thinking maybe Matt Hardy there, which would make sense why they didn't announce it.
But I don't know. I think it was kind of meant to be Raven the whole time, right?
No.
Ah.
Again, talk about that in a second.
Fucking Jeff.
So you can tell Jarrett's not a great tag team wrestler, by the way, because he whipped Waltman right toward the corner where AJ is when getting the heat.
There's like 6 of them.
Yeah, there's so many other sides you could have whipped him. There's 2 you can't, and 4 you can, where AJ doesn't look stupid. Choose any of the 4. He's not a tag team guy. He doesn't understand these things. So Jarrett was lining up, hitting Waltman with a guitar. Waltman was being held in place by Monty. Rudy distracted him, being like, hey man, you can't hit him with a guitar. While he was distracted, Waltman switched positions with Monty. Jarrett swiveled the hips, turned, smashed Monty with the guitar. I was like, oh my god, what have I done? As Styles then pinned Monty with the spiral tap. So if there was any loose alliance between Monty Brown and Jeff Jarrett, it just collapsed.
Yeah. Monty don't take that shit.
And one of my favorite little angles, it's my favorite thing. So after the match, they're celebrating Styles and Waltman just picks up the NWA title and gives it a long stare.
Yeah, that's some classic wrestling shit right there, and I love it.
Yeah, and they don't even do, like, he just hands it to AJ. They don't even do the thing where he holds on to it or anything. He just picks it up, and for like 10 seconds, he just looks at it, and then he gives it to AJ. Like, there you go. Wrestling can be so simple.
Yeah.
I did appreciate how both episodes of Impact this month ended with Mike Tenay, now on the booking committee, screaming at the top of his lungs, "What an impact!"
He's so genuinely into it.
But, like, not that he's been dogging it, not that he's been, like, not trying, because I think he's been trying very hard, but you do get the sense that he is actively trying a little bit harder now that, like, he has his hand in the creative and he's trying to get his own creative over.
Yeah, why wouldn't he?
Which actually, we talk a lot about how, particularly when it relates to Dusty, you can't really be Booker and on TV because ultimately you'll serve yourself.
Yeah. Especially someone generally regarded as having a bit of an ego.
Dusty? No.
No.
Jeff? No.
No. Kevin Nash in WCW?
Whereas I think there's a direct relationship between being a good announcer and having, like, a creative investment in what's happening.
Because as an announcer, your job is to put the whole show over.
Yeah.
As a wrestler, your job is to put yourself over. And as a booker, your job is to put the company over. So when those collide, you have a problem. But when you have one that synergizes with those two beliefs, like the announcing role, it can flourish it.
Yeah, because the job of the announcer, as he said, is to put things over and explain the stories. So who knows the stories better than the person who books the show or helps creative? He's on the committee in Tanay's part.
That's what Bill Watts did too.
And Vince and Bischoff.
Yeah.
All announcers, all either leading or part of creative. Gabe. Well, let's not talk about Gabe's announcing.
Gabe's not a great example of it.
But I do think there's something there that if you have somebody on creative who's a good announcer, they're probably a good person to put at that desk to actually sell the stuff and get it over.
Let's get Tony Khan on Revolution. I mean, the show that already happened when he came out on Revolution and did it. So that brings us to Slammiversary, June 19, 2005, TNA's 3rd anniversary show, held on the 3rd anniversary of the company, which I think is a fun little touch. As it should be.
They should always hold it on the 19th.
Of course.
It was one of the nice things where Slammiversary in 2022 fell on the 19th. It was a Sunday, so you could do the actual 20th anniversary show on the 19th as well. So they aired footage from an angle they did in the pre-show, where Raven was once again complaining that he's not in the NWA title match. He had a confrontation with Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett was backing out of the ring, and there was the classic TNA Jeff Hardy fan at ringside, who Jeff Jarrett pulled over the rail and started wailing on with punches. Then security took him away and arrested him, and then he was taken out of the match, and Raven was put into the match by Larry Zbyszko. So that your King of the Mountain lineup is Styles, Monty, Abyss, Waltman, who was the wild card, and now Raven replacing Jeff Jarrett.
But Garrett, why isn't Jeff in it?
It's a good question, Liam. One to which there is a very bad answer. Jeff Jarrett did not wrestle in the main event of Sunday's TNA 3rd Anniversary Slammiversary pay-per-view. Although heavily advertised for the King of the Mountain match, he bowed out of the match voluntarily. I don't think PW Torch's characterization there is necessarily correct. Multiple sources heard that Jarrett was upset he wasn't booked by the new booking committee to win the match. And like Dave goes a step further to be like, at one stage he was. At one stage, like, Jarrett was meant to win the belt back, and everyone was like, no, that's a terrible idea, let's not do that. It was apparently a subject of major debate throughout the week who'd actually go over in this match. After spending a lot of time over the last year pushing himself as King of the Mountain, he apparently felt it would be damaging to his character to not win that match.
You're an ass-showing heel. That is your job.
No, he's a cool guy main eventer, Liam. He can't sacrifice the stone credibility of the King of the Mountain nickname.
Truly insane for, like, a Memphis era guy to not get showing your ass.
Yep. It's so important that he protect the integrity of his nickname, that he win the King of the Mountain match. Dixie Carter, who has majority ownership of TNA, stood her ground and would not change her mind and have Jarrett win the match. As a result, several scenarios were discussed, and they went with an angle during the pay-per-view pregame show where Jarrett would be arrested and taken out.
Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett's back.
Backstage, although there was hesitance to be too openly anti-Jarrett since he is still part owner and could still end up wielding power, wrestlers conveyed to each other the disappointment in Jarrett's insistence that he win the match. Multiple sources say Jarrett lost a lot of respect among his colleagues for apparently pulling the power play. There were even rumors that Jarrett had expressed concern that the main event would fall apart without him involved to keep it together.
Okay.
Jarrett was still scheduled to be at the TVs.
Yeah, well, no, it was fine. It was a great match, so...
Yeah, so Dave gives a little more detail that Jarrett was told that he was getting the title back, but the feeling among everybody in the company, aside from Jeff and Jerry, was that they just simply could not do that. They couldn't.
Why even tell the man? Why get his hopes up?
Yeah, and like, again, it's colored a lot by all this stuff we talked about at the start of the show, all the little ownership things that are going on, all the potential takeover bids. So there is a lot of contention between the Jarretts and the characters, and that is like boiling over onto creative decisions. And like, there's no world in which Jeff should have won this match. None.
No.
Like, one, he's held the belt for 11 months.
He is the 6th person in this 5-person match that I would have put the title on.
There is multiple people not in this match. You'd be like, strap them up before you'd strap up Jeff right now. Yeah. Again, it goes back to them angling to get power, and they believe the belt has power, so they want to keep the belt. So that's what it comes down to. My favorite little note: it is believed AJ Styles wasn't unhappy about losing the title after 1 month, as he wanted to be back in the X division, and perhaps with the current booking committee, the X title will be the main event title going forward. What a brilliant himbo AJ Styles is.
He's like, I'm just happy to be here, man.
He's just like, he doesn't have like much of an ego about it. He just wants to go out there and have good wrestling matches, and he doesn't care if he's champ. He doesn't like. I'm sure there's parts of his career where he does begin to like get an eye for politicking, because you kind of have to in the world of wrestling. But I love the pure innocence of the man here, apparently being like, I don't particularly mind. I just want to have cool X Division title matches.
He's like, I've already been the champion of the flat world 3 times.
Dave says it's reported Jarrett did not take the change well and refused to participate in the main event, and at this point has no planned match for the next pay-per-view either.
Then go away.
One wrestler in the match was even openly talking to fans about Jarrett refusing to do the match because King of the Mountain is his gimmick, and he didn't want to lose. Raven or Waltman?
I wonder who that could have been.
To be fair, I believe Raven or Waltman.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's one of those two.
And many people in the industry as a whole and wrestlers in the company were privately talking, as we mentioned, about how much respect they lost for Jarrett over this. Jarrett was trying to save face when asked by fans about it, saying it was part of an angle.
Everyone hates, like, even the people who liked him now are like, ugh, what a dick.
Like, this is the point where he does seem like just unbearable to deal with, right? Where it's like, this is my company and it's been taken away from me for pretty reasonable reasons.
You were champion for like a year and we're always the top guy on the show. It's been 3 years. There's been no advancement in the company. Just fucking take an L.
As we were mentioning, it is June 2005. Since November 2003, there has only been 6 weeks where he has not been champion.
Yeah, just take an L.
6 weeks out of 18 months.
That being said, really look forward. I mean, when he won the tag titles at Revolution, I was all in on it.
We're recording it's the night of Revolution in case people
Shut
haven't
up!
listened
Don't
to
tell them.
But yeah, Jarrett making a big old show of himself.
I hope right now he's talking to Tony and he's like, it'd be really against my character as the Outlaw to lose this 4-way for the tag team titles.
As the last Outlaw, I cannot lose to a team managed by the old Outlaw. So
Yeah, of course. So what we're saying is Jarrett will get attacked will attack a fan in the pre-show, and Raven will take his place.
And the fan will be dressed as Danhausen rather than Jeff Hardy.
Yes.
Maybe Orange Cassidy.
It'll be Jeff Hardy dressed as Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. So that does actually bring us to the match.
It's a great match.
It is. It's, I think, for 2 for 2 for real darn good King of the Mountains.
Yeah, fuck all the King of that Mountain haters, first of all. Us King of the Mountain respecters stay living.
Yeah.
Everyone else, fuck off. It's just a big dumb spot fest where they do a bunch of crazy shit and ladders, and the thing that makes this one so great is like the pacing is tremendous.
I was a little bit disappointed because on the TV they did a video package on the rules of King of the Mountain.
No Scott Hudson.
No Scott Hudson. At no point did I see Scott Hudson say the words "the rules are simple."
Devastating.
I was very upset.
And that's why Jeff refused.
He saw that package, is like, I can't do the job now. No one will understand that the rules are actually quite simple. It's really just a ladder match.
Yeah.
Waltman immediately crossbodied Raven off the box while Styles ran at Abyss off the ladder, so we started like a real clip.
Yeah, they just go 100 miles the whole time.
Monty pounced Raven to become eligible within like the first 90 seconds. So like we're going.
Yeah.
Monty then pinned Waltman with an alpha bomb, and Don West did a good job of explaining. It's like, well, Monty is already eligible from pinning Raven, but if he pins somebody else, you send him to the box, so that takes him out of the match for 2 minutes.
Which has always been some great continuity, I thought.
Monty then pounced AJ, but Raven pulled him out of the ring and stole the pin, so he's eligible. AJ goes to the box. AJ and Waltman then struck up an alliance in the penalty box. It is worth noting, pre-tape earlier in the show, Franchise had Waltman, and he asked him, how'd you get in the match? And he's like, I'm pretty good at politicking, for Shane. But the important part of this is Waltman says that tonight there's not going to be any unity. I'm a lone wolf. AJ clearly did not see this promo. So Waltman insists that there's not going to be any alliances. He's out for himself to win the belt tonight. But
Foreshadowing!
while both him and Styles are in the penalty box, they seem to strike up an alliance of sorts.
I love the penalty box.
Yeah, and you can always do cool moves off it or into it.
See, that's what we've been saying is more like, oh God, just make new matches. Seriously.
And not matches that are just like different names for old matches.
Yeah. The last burial.
Abyss pinned Monty with the Black Hole Slam to become eligible. Styles spiral tapped Abyss through a table on the floor to also become eligible.
It was awesome.
Like this match was just going.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where it's like, go watch it.
So Styles, eligible, has the belt, he's climbing, and then he happens to drop the belt. But his pal Sean Waltman's right there.
It's his friend.
His friend Sean Waltman picks up the belt, and he goes to hand it to AJ. And he's like, here, pal, go win the belt. This is your time. And then betrays him and X Factors him off a ladder.
How could he do this?
That makes him eligible. Abyss pushed Waltman and AJ off a ladder. Waltman just took a regular bump to the floor. AJ took a bump to a table, because of course he did.
But like, you could see Waltman be like, fuck, where am I gonna land?
And AJ's just like, table, wee!
Whee!
Abyss goes to climb the ladder, but then Monty pounces him off the ladder through a table set up in the corner. Also ruled.
Yeah, everything in this match rules.
Raven even flowed Monty, climbed the ladder. Abyss tried to climb, but Raven stomped him off, and Raven hung the belt to become the new NWA World Champion, and finally, after over 2 years of saying it, fulfilling his destiny.
Took him a while. Some would say too long.
Some would argue it should have taken him 3 months.
But hey, we got there in the end.
Yeah, because he should have been champ when he faced Jarrett. He should have been. He just should have been. And then there's multiple places through the next 2 years where you're like, why aren't you making Raven champ?
When they're heading onto TV.
And then he turns babyface, and you're like, oh yeah, he's doing well here. Why aren't you turning him? But he should be champ. He should be the one to beat heel Jarrett. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And then he never is. And then for some reason, like the 6 weeks where Jarrett's not champion is a 4-week Styles reign and a 2-week Killings reign, which are fine. But like, why not Raven? And then Raven goes into that weird period where he's still having like good matches. He has like the Monsters Ball match. He has some matches with Abyss. He has some matches with Monty. He then goes into like the Dustin stuff, which just kind of stinks. But then he goes back to the Jeff Hardy stuff, which is pretty good.
There was weird moments, but I feel like they brought it together when they needed to.
Yeah, they had like 6 weeks to make this guy seem like a main event guy again. And they did, I think, as good a job as you could.
Yeah.
Where, like, he cut great promos, he was an important part of the show, he had a kick-ass match with Waltman last month, and now he's NWA champ.
I look forward to seeing how it plays out.
And yeah, hell of a match, as we said. So, if you watch Raven celebrating this match, Liam,
I do.
you can see he's bleeding.
Yes.
And I can't for the life of me find out when he started bleeding.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what caused him to bleed? So I scroll back a few minutes, and he's like not bleeding for the entirety of the end of the match. And I'm like, did this dude bleed just for his world title celebration?
Or maybe he just, like, hit his head on the ladder as he went up.
Maybe he did. I should watch closely. Because I thought maybe the NWA title might have hit him in the head or something. I really was like, at what point does this dude start bleeding? Because I've now convinced myself he did in fact bleed just so his world title celebration would look cool.
Yeah, well, it's going to get replayed a lot. Why not?
Yeah, it's noble intent.
I respect any and all gigging, so...
As Mike Tenay does scream, destiny fulfilled, as we go off the air of that show, to kind of fulfill a 2-year arc. What is kind of a 2-year arc.
A 2-year arc that shouldn't have been a 2-year arc.
And was an arc with a substantial valley in it, but it peaked pretty well.
Yeah.